work good like, if you're by yourself or if you're gaming. But for two people in here, the mics would pick up each other. So then you get a constant echo.
Oh.
And then they would be fighting each other, and then the audio just sound like garbage.
Okay.
Now with these mics, you can isolate a lot more.
These are nice, man.
Yeah, and
These are nice.
During the podcast too, if you want to move around, you can move the mic with you, just as long as the table kind of stays there. Otherwise, these little tables will flip over. Yeah. But hopefully we'll go round 2 here. We'll try again. Yeah, man. So I'm here with
Bailey.
And Bailey, tell us who you are, man. We'll do this. We did this once.
Attempt number 2.
Yeah.
So kind of along with Pell here, I'm from Winkler. And the idea right now is I'm actually headed to Thailand in a couple days. So I leave on Tuesday. Similarly to Pell, I'm big into the gym. I just finished up a summer sales program. So I run a door-to-door company or not my own company, but kind of like a sub business of my own. And that's gone really well. And now we're off to do some traveling.
Are you going to do your sales business in Thailand as well? Or are you going to go in a different direction?
No. So with the sales business, it's more like door-to-door marketing. So essentially we pick different areas. So we've been mainly based in Toronto. That's where I've been in the most commonly. I did that a little bit there, but a little bit in Australia. So Thailand, I mean, the market's not very English, of course. I wouldn't do too well there. Yeah. So mainly I'm trying to get into some online sales out there.
Okay.
And try to branch away from the door-to-door industry. It's pretty gritty work. Obviously, you're just constant every few minutes, right? So it's a little bit difficult, but yeah.
Yeah, I imagine you get some unique responses and stuff like that.
Oh, dude, I could tell you a story right now. Oh. So when I first started the job, so it was 2020. It was in the heart of COVID. That was when I first started this, and everyone was like, dude, like it's COVID. Like you're trying to do door-to-door sales and like people are going to tell you to put a mask on, which some people did. It was actually a lot rarer than I thought it would be. Like I was actually kind of nervous about that. I thought maybe that people were going to just constantly be like, hey, why aren't you wearing a mask? Like you shouldn't be here. Like, keep your distance. But it was only the Karens that did that. But anyway, so one of my first experiences on the doors, like you're just learning the pitch. I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm just kind of knocking and hoping for the best at this point, hoping somebody's like, hey, like I'll buy pest control. I'm like, sure. And this one guy was an old dude, and you're taught obviously in sales to kind of push past objections, right? So if they say not interested, you're going to blow through that with like hey, sure, no worries. I'll just show you what we're doing. And so this one guy, I maybe pushed a little bit too hard. I pushed past like 3 of his not interesteds. And after the 3rd one, he's like, did you not hear me? I said, I'm not interested. Now fuck away and die. And he slams the door in my face. I'm just like how do I respond to that?
Yeah.
And we were all pretty new. So everyone was like, all the rookies were putting into the chat, like the group chat, like, oh, how do you respond to this? How do you respond to this? So I just put in the chat, how do you respond to fuck away and die? And everyone's like, run. Like, so that was a pretty funny experience.
Like, don't do it, man. Don't do it.
Yeah.
He's just mad.
Exactly. So
how did you get into that?
Honestly, it was like pretty just like kind of luck, to be honest. So I was just hanging out in my basement and I was doing just a serving job here in Winkler. And my buddy just randomly hits me up out of nowhere. He's just like, hey, I'm actually going to be going to Toronto. I got approached by one of my old swimming buddies and he does this door-to-door thing. And I'm hoping to make this and this amount of money in the summer in a 4-month period. You want to come? I didn't hesitate. I just said, yes. What are we selling? And I just kind of went for it because I was like 20 at the time. Mm-hmm. So or 19 at the time, turning 20. And I was like, yeah, I'm looking for any out, right? Any different thing that is out of the norm. And honestly, I tried it out. And at first it was awful. Like I was doing so bad at it at first. And luckily with over time, picked up, got really good at it. And here we are today.
Yeah, I guess like, especially, I wish even like being 19 and whatever, those like early 20s years or late teens years when you're kind of out of school. I remember like thinking you had to have things almost set up a little bit. Like you're supposed to just kind of get into your routine and work your way up. And looking back, I'm like, oh man, you know what? Like shit wasn't nearly as serious. It's like you could have like, or talking to myself, it's like you could have taken a little bit more risks and maybe, you know, like going on a sales job like that, you know, you let's say it does end up being just a shit show and it sucks and whatever. You come back and it's like, I got some good stories. I got some good stories, some good lessons, and you move forward. And best case scenario, it works out and you learn a bunch of stuff and then you can take it into whatever direction that it goes. Yeah, I remember like now I'm thinking back and thinking, why were you so stressed about figuring this stuff out? Like,
Yeah.
should have just figured out less stuff and gone with it a little bit more.
I mean, probably a little bit of conditioning. Was for you, was your parents kind of like pushing you like a lot towards like, hey, you got to find a job, you got to find your career. So that's what it was kind of like for
Yeah.
me. I don't know if it was
It
similar.
was definitely like for me, it was so my mom, I lived with my mom, grew up with my mom for especially through the teen years. And it was a lot of like, make sure your bases are covered. Make
Yeah.
sure I'm not going to pay for your car. I'm not going to pay for your phone bill. I'm not going to pay for your house, whatever. Your
Right.
groceries are yours. So make sure those things are paid. So then kind of, I think growing up and stuff, it was like that security component was decent, and having those things managed was decent to a point where, you know, maybe some of them didn't need to be managed, or maybe you didn't need all of them.
Yeah.
Like it was like, hey, can I go without this for a little while? Yeah, I don't need that thing. I can get away without having it. Like looking back, I'm like, maybe wish, you know, some of those things that you think you need end up just being kind of the chain attached to, you know, the post.
Yeah. Exactly.
And you're like, I think I need this, but really if you just get rid of it, undo that chain, and you have a little more freedom to go explore around or take some risks.
Yeah.
Definitely learned that a little bit later than you in 19, 20 years old. That's really cool. And I imagine you get to meet people too in that environment, just out of, I'm sure, happenstance of being in a different place.
I think that was probably the best part of the job of like, or just getting into sales at the time is, well, for one, sales is probably the most like valued skill at like a young age. Like I think just being able to learn to communicate with people, like have a conversation like we're having right now, and not be, you know, super nervous, not be like super timid and shy, and just being confident in your own skin. Like I think that's what it really taught me like the most. And being able to have the opportunity to network with a lot of people that were in the same field and like doing well. Like I learned like a ton from these guys. Like some of these guys, they were while I was doing like no accounts or selling no accounts in April, there was a guy that was getting like 8 accounts in a day. And I'm like looking at this guy like, dude, what are you doing?
That's sweet.
Like, how are you doing this? And he was my mentor. My manager, his name was Johnny. And he kind of guided me throughout that first year. And then after that, I found even more mentors. When I kind of outgrew that, you find more people that are still above you. It's just kind of having the humility to realize like there's a lot of people that have done this for a lot longer than you, and they're a lot better than you at this.
Yeah.
And just like realizing that and like just continuing to learn from them as much as you can. So
That's, yeah, I would 100% like humility, I think, is a huge thing.
yeah.
It's like, again, I go back to that, trying to have that security. It's almost in that security, your personality becomes that security a little bit too, where I remember at times of being like resistant to those new situations or those new mentors, because I'm like, oh, this risks my security. Or if I say I don't know what's going on here, then that risks my security. Like I don't know is a very insecure feeling on the inside, but actually comes across as very secure because you're able to communicate, hey, I don't know what's going on, but show me and I'll take a leap. I learned that a little bit later on. I remember I went into a sales job at like, I think it was 23 or 24, somewhere around there. And I remember going into it and I said to myself, I'm just going to say yes as many times as I can, obviously within reason of like not doing something that goes against my morals or integrity, but as many times as I can say yes, even if it's scary, I'm going to do it. And in that process, I ended up very similar, like finding different mentors who are, sometimes I agreed, sometimes I didn't, but I'm like, hey, even if I don't agree, I'm going to try this thing that they're telling me to do. I'm like, oh, I see why they're telling me to do that. Or even opening the door to conversations with people I wouldn't normally have a conversation with, because I would be insecure and trying to stay secure and be like, no, I don't want to enter that because I don't know what that guy's talking about. So I'm just going to avoid it. And it was like almost in that sales job, you're like, no, you're faced with, you have to navigate, hey, even though you don't know, how can you get along with this person? How can you communicate with them? How can you receive what they're saying and give them something of value back, or something that they can bounce off back and forth?
And even like just meeting, like I met you in the gym, like even just meeting you in the gym, like I was like, I see you and you're like, you're a big guy, you're much bigger than me. I'm like, oh geez, like I'm a little bit intimidated. Right. But it's just having the confidence to be like, hey, like just come up and chat with you. And I realized that we have a lot more in common than I even would have thought. Right.
Yeah.
And that's how you build connections. You just find people that are like-minded and you just have the confidence to approach them, have a chat with them. And then now we're having a podcast like this where we can just chat, and it's really nice. Right. So,
and I think too, like, maybe you can speak to this. I think when you develop that kind of perspective, just, subconsciously, I think subconsciously you open yourself up more to those opportunities. Like for example, I had a kid yesterday who was bench pressing, and I think the way you come across or the way you communicate right at the start changes because that kid asked me, "Hey, you can work in with me," because we weren't sure if the bench next to us was being used.
Yep.
And I said, "Oh, I'll give it a shot. If someone comes kicks me off, then I'll come in work in with you." And then just kind of tried to be friendly and whatever else. And then kind of from there had a good conversation with him. He was back in the gym. He was excited to be back in the gym, and it opened that door for that whole conversation. And at the end of it, he was like 16 years old, and he left me feeling inspired from his kind of
Yeah.
his a bit of his journey that he shared. But I think if I would have went into that subconsciously with a more protected perspective and not as much of an open perspective right off the start of that conversation, I don't think it would have ever happened. Much like you were saying when we had that conversation, it was like in the gym initially, it didn't feel confrontational, which I think a lot of people
Yeah.
think, especially in the gym. You know, everybody's
Everyone's
in their
nervous,
zone,
right?
Yeah,
They don't think that people want to be approached in the gym. That's like
Yeah.
a common thing. Like I'm like, you see a guy like repping out maybe 405 on the bench. You're
Yeah.
like, oh, this guy doesn't want to be talked to. He looks angry, right?
Yeah.
He's got some demons to battle.
Yeah.
But if you go chat with the guy, he probably just wants to have a buddy to chat with as well. It's everyone's very similar minded in that sense,
Yeah.
and we don't even really realize that. And I think when you just take a step back and you like really observe like what most people are like people want communication. People want
Yeah.
like buddies to chat with and have like-minded conversations with. It's not anything to worry about, really.
Yeah, and I think everybody, especially like some people are a little bit more standoffish, I would say. I'm sure
there's definitely
they're
examples.
they're a little bit more guarded, but you ask one or two questions about them and you show interest in who they are or what they're doing or something about them, even if it's, hey, I kind of like your shoes, like where'd you get those? And they might be a little guarded, like why is this guy asking about my shoes, like that's weird.
Yeah,
But you ask like one more question on top of that and all of a sudden they're like, oh, this person's actually interested in something that I'm doing.
yeah,
Which ultimately, let's be honest, you're in the gym, you're trying to get in better shape. You want people to notice what you're doing. You want a little bit of recognition for your hard work and stuff like that. People to different extents, I think, have that, but especially in those environments, I imagine door-to-door sales too. Like you're running into people in the middle of their days or in the middle
Yeah.
of something. So
Absolutely.
I imagine there's different tactics or different ways to approach people where they feel like, oh, I can let my guard down. This guy's at my door. What the heck? Okay, he's not here to take anything from me or take
Yeah.
my time or whatever.
And there was the barrier there. Like I was like I knew of you because I asked my dad. I asked my dad about you initially. I'm like, oh, I've never heard. Who is this guy? Like I was
Mhm.
curious about you, and you told me you had a gym, your own gym, and
Yep.
you were doing personal training, an online personal training. And I was like, hey, well, that's an awesome thing. And that was the icebreaker that I used when we started chatting. I started chatting with you about your business. I think you just have to look for the barriers and look for like common interests with people.
Yeah.
And you can really have a great conversation if you can break that down and use like icebreakers. And that was like the same thing on the doors. Like if like the pitches were obviously relatively the same all the time, like everyone would think that they have like their unique responses, but I'd heard it, a million times before. And there's like these set icebreakers that you can use every single time, like to really just break the ice and like give them a smile, even just something as simple as that.
Yeah.
And they right away let their guard down. And some people won't, right? Some people will just kick you off the doorstep and like, I don't want anything to do with you. But if you are genuine and nice and kind to the person, like there's no reason that they're not going to give you the time of day to at least hear you out or hear what you have to say. And going off what you said, like talking about them, that's a great way to do that. Like just asking a question, simple as that, asking a question about them, finding common ground, and you're really able to break the barrier that way.
Yeah. Do you think like, because you were saying there is a lot of times where people are like, Jay, just get off my yard. Do you think that in terms of kind of moving forward in other aspects of your life, that almost a rejection, does it help you or assist you with rejection going forward? Like let's say you try something now. This podcast, for example, let's say you pop off this podcast, we put it online, everything. One of your friends, family members comes up to you and says, that was dumb. Like, I don't know why you're doing that. Who do you think you are? All this stuff. Do you think it helps with that too, to kind of brush that off a little bit easier?
I think it helps. Like that's probably the thing that helps me the most was I had to go and get absolutely pounded on for me to realize like it's okay to mess up. It's okay to make mistakes, and it's okay to look kind of stupid and look a little bit embarrassed to actually find passion in your life. Like for me, I wanted to find something that was out of the norm. I hated the idea of the original like 9 to 5, like you know how it gets, right?
Yeah.
Like it's just a simple life in which that wasn't what I want. I want to travel. I want to experience the world, what God has to what God's created. I want to see it, right? And that the whole thing with door to door, it just like really gave me this mental fortitude in the sense that when I would knock on a door, I wasn't worried about a yes or a no anymore. It was just about finding the yeses, and
Mhm.
the no's I would push off and I would leave, walk. I have a Segway that I use in between doors. It's actually really sick. It's not like one of those like hand ones.
Oh, it's like an
It's like
actual
yeah.
I thought you were referencing like a segue in conversation.
No. Like an actual like I would hop on my Segway and
Yeah.
I would be gone. These guys are out of my mind already. And it's like one of those like hoverboard kind of things. So like there's a rotor in the middle and you use
Yep.
your knees to turn and you
Yep.
just lean. It's really cool. But yeah, I mean, like the rejection, it was like, it wasn't at first, of course it sucked, right? It takes some time to really build that. And like, just having the experience of training a lot of guys, like I had a team this year, and the first 2 years I was just kind of on my own. The second year I brought out one guy. First year I was by myself, and then this year I just finished up. I brought out 15 people, and just seeing like the progression in the sense of like people's social skills. Like I brought out guys. There's one guy in specific. I brought him out. I never even thought he was going to do well at this. I did like, to be honest, like I thought he would be like an average rep, you know, and that's okay. Like not everyone's going to be excel in it, but it's of course important to just improve your skills. And he went from someone who was really, really shy and timid. And by the end of the summer, he was so much more outgoing, so much easier to chat with. And you would have great conversations with the guy. And it was a consistent trend throughout all the reps. Almost every single rep was a lot more shy and timid or just a lot less confident than towards the end when they kind of built that mental toughness inside of them, just getting kind of wrecked on the doors per se. Like it changes you a lot and it helps in every area of life. Like if you want to cold approach women, you're able to do that a lot better. And like I would give that as an example to guys. Like I would push them. We'd be at the beach or whatever, and there was one specific example. This guy, there was a girl he liked, and I was the one who was like I was pressuring him, and everybody kind of hopped on. I'm like, dude, you got to go do it. You got to go talk to her. And then everybody started pressuring the guy, and then he's like, and he went and did it. And it was just awesome. Like to see like these guys that never really done stuff like that. Like it's pretty difficult for people to like approach women. Women
Yeah.
is it's the hardest one. It's
Yeah.
the hardest door to knock,
Yeah.
honestly. And so that was pretty cool to see as well. Like they don't care about the rejection there. And they find that you can't really lose.
You can, and I think like maybe you can speak to this. I would love your perspective on this too. Just I've seen you put out a little more content as you've been doing this and transitioning into kind of a different phase.
Yeah.
People forget, like
Yep.
people forget much quicker than I think people think they do. Like
Right.
if you go and you approach someone, let's say it's someone as simple as the gym or a door-to-door sales or some aspect of creating a conversation, and you make a complete fool of yourself, they forget fairly, as long as you're not like doing something absurd,
Yeah.
like completely crazy, they're going to move on within 10-15 seconds.
Literally.
And totally forget that you ever even existed. Like you don't matter in their world as much as you think you matter in their world.
Yeah.
And maybe you can speak to that from your perspective. Like you've had those conversations probably more times than myself. So
well, there's a lot of times where you can make a lot bigger of an impact on a person than you think. Like
Mhm.
if you actually like, especially for like, let's say door to door, if you make a really good impression on these people, you actually will leave a lasting impact. It still won't last that long.
Yeah.
You know, you can make a great impression. You can be a top tier sales rep. They buy your service, but after they've bought the service, the next day that's gone. You know, that high is gone because you got them excited. You got them feeling really happy and confident and in this decision to buy. But after they've bought, well, now that's you're an afterthought.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter per se in what, it doesn't matter what you're using for that. Like, it's not going to change much. Like if you're going out and you're actually just trying to do different things, like with social, like door to door or going to approach people, anything like that, you're not going to lose in any way. You're going to win or you're going to learn.
Yeah.
It's going to be one of those two. And if you have that mindset for it, you're golden.
Yeah. And I think I've seen this a lot in training because you are meeting new people and spending time with new people
Yeah.
a decent amount of time, and it's always a little weird at the start. But I've like the you either win or you learn. I think is a great perspective in terms of like that meeting people or having that conversation, because it's if you don't have that and you win or you lose, let's say,
Yeah.
I think that creates a jaded perspective from people, a perspective that prevents people from doing things
Yeah.
because they're not learning from it and adjusting kind of, maybe it's the way they communicate, or maybe it's just understanding that they're not going to be for everybody. Their approach, their conversation, their personality, even maybe the way they look isn't going to be for everybody. And there's some adjustments you can make and all those different things you can learn from it. But I think people get that rejection or that not learning part,
Yeah.
and then they get stuck and they pull back and they get back into like a cave.
Yeah.
And then they just continue in that cave and wonder why the world is the way the world is from the perspective of their cave.
And a lot of people, they don't take the time to build the tolerance for it. That's the thing. They try to jump straight into something. Like, for example, there is a very high. Everyone's looking for a high ticket sales job. So it's online. You can find coaches or influencers, and you try to sell their package. And it's a very high end sales job. Like you can find packages to sell for like $5,000, in which you get a 20 or 30% cut from that, and that's a good amount of money.
Yeah.
So for the job that I do, it's pretty mid ticket. So it's not a super high contract. I'm typically selling contracts between $800 to $1,000 for like a yearly package, which is pretty mid ticket, and you're getting a decent commission off of that. But people want to jump straight into the dragon nest or whatever,
Yeah.
and they think they can handle that right away. And it's you have to build up a tolerance. You have to like go through the trials and tribulations to be able to get there. Like even now, if I want one of those high ticket jobs now, I'd be confident that I could find one, and that would be great. But a lot of people think that they're just able to jump right in, able to skip the mental toughness side of things, skip the actual learning of sales, or skip just all of the social stuff that goes along with it. And there's a lot more that goes into it that you have to take the time to go through that. It's just something you can't learn from just watching. You have to do.
Do you think sometimes people, like when they skip that step, like let's say they get into a position that they're maybe not ready for, and sometimes I look back at different things that, like wishing, things came quicker, things came easier. And then I look back, I'm like, oh, thank goodness it didn't, because I was not ready for that yet.
Right.
Do you think they ever get into that? They almost try and skip that step. And then that's when you have the outcomes of maybe the scammers or the fraudsters or the kind of almost like not great integrity or not great in character kind of, I don't know, product sales or things like that in any atmosphere. I don't even just mean sales, but almost like, hey, I wasn't ready for this, but now I need to find a way to navigate in this atmosphere, and I'm maybe going to take a negative approach now because I never had to learn those lessons. Do you think that ever happens? Like sometimes you get into that position because you skip steps.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes luck falls into your lap, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna find a job that's you should never have gotten, but you got it, and now you have to navigate that, and you're the lucky one that gets to go through that. But that's gonna come with a lot of trials and tribulations. It's gonna be a lot harder than you think.
Yeah.
There's gonna be people that are gonna struggle in that role, and you're gonna have a really tough time. And some people that won't work for them. But if you actually put in the work, I mean, I'm a believer that you can do anything you put your mind to. I've always believed that, and some people are very against visualization and don't think it's real or manifestation.
Yeah.
I'm a huge believer in that.
Me too.
You see it, you do it. That's what I think. Any goal that I've accomplished. Like for example, my first year in sales, when I was going to sales, everyone had to send in a video of themselves and saying what their name was and what their goal was for the summer. And I set that goal for 200 accounts. I'm like, hey, my name is Bailey Wolf. I'm going for 200 accounts this summer. We're going to try and crush it. And I didn't have that as a loose goal. I had that as that was my goal. That was what I was going to get. And so I envisioned it in my mind so many times. Like that's what I have to get. 200 is the end all be all. And I got it. I got that goal. And I think if you put your mind to it, you're in a role where maybe you're a bit over your head in the role that you're in. It's a bit difficult. If you study harder than most people, you grind harder than most people are willing to do, because we're in a world where most people aren't willing to put in a lot of work for what they're doing, especially because a lot of people are doing work they're not even passionate about. But if you put in the work on it, I think for sure, I think you can still thrive in that role. But it's just going to be a lot harder than you think because you're in obviously a role that may be a bit more difficult than a standard role to start out, right?
Yeah, I think that's a really good like perspective too. That I think too is like the manifestation or the visualization. I think it gets a bad rap because that's kind of where it stops. Like people will,
Yeah.
people will try and visualize or like, well, yeah, I'm picturing a Ferrari in my mind too,
Yeah.
and then it kind of stops there. But I think at the very least, when you actually try and implement it and you remove the outside sources, these voices of like, hey, visualize it, you have this motivational voice and you kind of just remove that. You take the thing and you do it. I think at the very least, it just changes your perspective because you can only think about so many things in a day. So
Yeah.
if you spend a little bit of your time focusing on that thing that you're actually trying to like produce or progress towards, it's more likely your outlook is going to be advantageous to that. So decisions you make are going to start to go towards that direction of that you're just simply thinking of. If you're always thinking negative or you're always thinking, everyone's out to get you. Well, yeah, when you have a conversation, the first thing that's going to come to your mind is this person's out to get me. It's not going to be advantageous to going towards that actual goal.
Yeah, well, it's action at the end of the day,
Yeah.
right? If you manifest and you visualize, you can do that all you want. But if you don't put any actionable steps towards actually achieving that, you're not getting anywhere.
Yeah.
And nothing's going to change. And you could probably relate, like, I'm guessing for you, because you're in the personal training field, like you probably envisioned all of this. Like you have a beautiful setup here. You got a gym downstairs that's awesome. You probably saw this all before you did it, and now you put in the steps. You have some clients now, but it wasn't going to happen overnight. You probably had to do some steps and it was a very big learning curve for you. So like you could probably relate to that in that sense.
Yeah, definitely. It was a learning curve. It still is a learning curve
Yeah.
at times. You learn different things. You put your foot in your mouth at times and you look back and you're like, crap, I look like a real asshole or a real idiot in that
Yeah.
circumstance. Or even at times in terms of, I think a lot of people when they start out, they have a really low level of respect for themselves too and who they are. And if you're putting in the work, respect yourself for that work, give yourself credit for that work, within reason. But but keep your head up high. Even if you face some resistance, keep your head up high and don't knock yourself down or devalue yourself to the point that, people are walking all over you, because some people they're trying to get the most value out of whatever they're trying to do. And it makes sense. But I think, that learning curve is always going on. And having that vision, I think helps with that learning curve. It helps you to kind of take those knocks and be like, yeah, that happened. But now the learn part, I'm going to take another step. I have this end goal. This was just a little bit of a bump along the road.
To go off that, be humble, but not egotistical.
Yes.
Like of course, realize that you have actually made some good achievements in your life and be happy about that. That's like, of course, pride, there's levels to it being bad and good. You want to be proud of the accomplishments that you've made, but you don't want to overstate them drastically. Like I don't want to go around yelling at people, oh, I make more money than you. I'm more accomplished than you.
Yeah.
I'm traveling the world. You're not. Like, that's not something that's not going to help anybody. That's not going to help me. It's just going to bring me down.
Yeah.
If you're being humble and not egotistical at the same time, you're setting yourself up for a lot happier of a life, a lot better connections with people, and just a lot better quality of life, essentially. But I'm curious for you, like what kind of led to the personal training side of things? Like what steps of your kind of childhood, I guess, kind of brought you towards the gym?
So that's a good question, man. I remember, so the very first time I remember like fitness or working out was I was at a local strongman competition.
Oh, yo.
And I remember sitting there with my dad and one of the guys in the strongman competition, he had a big like bulging bicep and big shoulders.
Yeah.
And in my brain, I didn't understand anatomy, of course. I was probably like 8 years old. And I said to my dad, that guy's got 2 biceps because his shoulder was so big.
Yeah.
And I think back, I'm like, you're an idiot, kid. But I seen that and I was like, man, I kind of want to be like that. And whatever, that passed by. And then as I got older, I would do little workouts because I was always a skinny kid, like small kids, skinny kids, not super athletic. But my older sister, she was very athletic and very coordinated and good at stuff. I wanted to play hockey and I thought I was going to go in the NHL. Meanwhile, I could hardly skate. But
what was her like sport? Like what was she into?
So she was really good at hockey. She was a goalie and she was really good at soccer.
Okay.
And the hockey one, I remember she's very good at it. And then eventually she was just like, yeah, I don't want to play anymore. She's just like, I'm done.
That happens a lot. I feel like
Yeah.
with lots of people, right?
And I was like, you're good at this. I can hardly skate and you're good at this. You're just going to be done. So she moved to soccer and she was really good at that. And eventually she kind of phased out and she got into working out, and she worked at a local gym as a receptionist just during high school and stuff. And one day in high school, probably grade 9, a kid asked her, or a kid who knew her, came up to me and said to me, he's like, isn't it sad your sister is more muscular than you?
Ooh,
And I was like, I
that was
remember,
a turning point.
yeah, I remember thinking, this isn't going to be a thing anymore.
Yep.
And my goal when I started working out is I'm still not the strongest. I'm still not the biggest. I'm still not the best at anything in particular. But what I thought my skill could be out of all of those that I could build more than the other ones or quicker is I'm going to be here at 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years down the road,
Yep.
whatever it takes, I'm still going to be here. I'm still going to be doing this, and I'm still going to be progressing as much as I can in whatever way I can, because these other guys or these other girls, whatever it is, are making quicker progress than I was at that time, especially. But I thought I can outlast this. I can build habits, or I can figure out ways to outlast. And that's kind of been the motto in the back of my head in different phases. Now that's come and gone, and I've had to relearn what that looks like and adjust it and all those things, and even different ways to actually share that as value to someone else who might be in a similar position. But yeah, that's what really got the ball rolling. I was like, time to get working. I got to get bigger than my sister.
Dude, I love that, because
Yeah.
I think a lot of people in our generations, they barely even think in days, weeks, months. Most of them will not think in years, and you were thinking in decades.
Oh
and,
yeah.
and I think that is like the biggest difference, right? Most people, they will not think that far in advance. And like, to relate it to myself, I mean, with this new kind of starting out in content creation, it's very new for me. I'm just getting into YouTube and Instagram and everything like that. And I'm just trying to find my bearings at this point. And I made the commitment to myself, hey, I'm in this for the next 5 years, no matter what. No matter what, whether it's, even if I'm posting once a week, whatever it is, I'm in this for the next 5 years, guaranteed. And I think that is what differentiates a lot of people from success and failure, is if you can commit yourself long term and realize, hey, I'm gonna suck at this. My first 50 videos are probably gonna be ass, and most people won't want to watch them, but my next 50 might be pretty good. And then my next 50 might blow up, you know? And it's just having that mindset, realizing that it's going to take time. You're going to get there. And same for you with the gym. Like, you keep going to the gym, you keep throwing up the bicep curls, you're going to have 2 biceps.
Yeah.
you know, you're going to get there eventually, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you put enough time into it, you're going to get there. And like, the same thing with the gym for me. Like, it was kind of my safe space. And it was where I found myself mentally, and found like a way to kind of break free and be just like, I mean, it's probably the same for you, right? It's always a safe space, essentially. And I think looking in decades, thinking in long term for goal setting, it's going to differentiate you drastically from a lot of people.
Yeah. Do you find, like, as you've gotten into the content creation side, which we should touch on too, like you're doing some fitness content creation, right? Some fitness and I would say lifestyle perspective stuff from what I've been watching of yours. Have you felt that resistance in terms of, okay, I put out a video, it didn't do quite as good as I'd hoped it to do, or have you felt that yet?
Oh, dude, I can't believe like that I'm already looking at analytics way too much. Like it, and that's probably, you probably have done this all the time.
100%.
Like
100%.
I'm looking at analytics, like thinking that I deserve more views, which I think is like, that's the shitty mindset right there. It's like, I don't deserve any views. Like, I haven't put out anything yet. Like, I've put out maybe 7 videos so far on YouTube, like 3 videos and like 4 shorts or something like that. And to think that I would deserve to have more than 100 views, or if even that, it's like, it's far fetched. Like, I haven't put out any content. My content still needs a lot of work. But it's, for me, I think right now, like, it's just finding out, okay, what niche do I really want to stick to? What do I want to focus on and explain? Like you said, lifestyle, fitness, and sales. Those are the 3 things that I know pretty well. Sales and fitness, especially. Those are the things that I know I can help people with and train people with. And so that's kind of the niche that I want to kind of stick down to and keep just putting out content like that. But it's going to take time to to make something that's pretty good and valuable, and I want to make it valuable. And I'm sure it's the same for you. You want to put out content that you actually feel like you're helping people with and that people can relate to. And so I've tried to be as vulnerable as possible. Like I put out a video talking about like addictions, like my previous addictions. Like I've been addicted to weed. It's been like an ongoing thing for like quite a while now. Like the last like 2 years, like not daily, but almost like pretty close. And that's a pretty shitty thing. Like it's not a good thing to be addicted to. It sucks away your motivation. It sucks away your drive. And same thing with gaming. I don't know. Were you a gamer when you were?
I didn't have the attention span, so
Okay.
like loading screens and stuff like
Oh.
that. I was like, I could go do. I at my one sales job, we got a Christmas gift, and I went and got an Xbox One. It was
Okay.
out there. I'm like, I'm gonna play some video games. Well, I played the UFC video game
Oh, that's
pretty consistently, like each day.
Nice.
My friends are like, you got to play Apex, I think it's called.
Apex Legends.
Yeah, they're like, you got to play it. I played it 3 days for probably an hour a day. I didn't get 1 kill.
Oh man.
Man, I was so bad. I was like, and then I would wait for these loading screens, and I would just power it off, and I would go do something. Like I would get distracted with something, so I was just never able to get into it. But I'm sure if I committed, I would be overly into it. That's probably an issue I would have.
Well, we probably have I think a similarity that we definitely have is that when we have something that we like, we go all in.
Too much, right?
Like all in. And like that was, and so bad habits is the same thing for me, right? If it was weed, if it was video games, if it was just over consuming just social media, that was also a big thing, and it still is. And so I think I'm just trying, like right now, I'm trying to make sure that I'm dealing with my own stuff right now. And that's like a big reason with the Thailand trip is I think it's going to be very introspective. A lot of people would think that I'm going there for travel. I'm really not. I'm going there for a cheaper lifestyle and for warm weather, but also just to find myself, to have some time kind of on my own where I can be introspective. I can spend time with God, spend time with myself in prayer, and just kind of learn ways to cope and actually like in a healthy way, rather than consistently turning back to the bad habits. Because I find when I come home, like I was in Australia last winter, and then I always go to Toronto for the summers for the sales job, and I'm there for the whole time. Every time I get back home, I default to the bad habits. I default straight back to them. I'm munching on junk food, and I'm watching TV, or I'm playing games. And that's my whole day gone. Just like that, right? I never did anything really productive. And so this whole trip is for me to find myself and be able to heal myself so that I can hopefully help others, heal them as well, and help bring it to the light that this is like the modern addictions of our lifestyle, of our generation, like porn and video games and weed, all that stuff. It's terrible. It's really taking a toll on our brains. My focus sucks now. I'm able to get in the flow state here with you and like have a social conversation because we've been talking for a little while. But like, if I don't allow myself to get in the flow, I find I'm like, I can't do proper work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I don't know if you're similar too with that, but I know for me, if I don't find like a rhythm, like you said, like a flow of getting some stuff done, whether it's a lot or a little bit, or whether it produced something or it didn't, I find I go to bed and I sit there and I stare at the ceiling and I think in my head and just almost get anxious and build that anxiety. And I'm curious, I'm sure this is a touchy subject for a lot of people. I'm sure they have perspectives on it, but I'm curious how much of the anxiety and depression that everybody seems to have now isn't caused from stuff like what you're speaking about, where it's a lack of purpose, whether that purpose is producing anything or if it's it feels like it's going in any direction, that lack of like actually moving towards an objective. So whether it's, cleaning something up or making 50 videos that, might or might not do anything. Yeah. And whatever it is, the simple lack of that, going into bed and your body saying, hey, we didn't move in any direction today.
We accomplished nothing.
Yeah. We didn't, we didn't make anybody proud. We didn't make ourselves proud in kind of the things we did. I wonder how much, I know that's going to be a sensitive subject for a lot of people, but I wonder how much of that anxiety and depression that kind of is popular now is caused by stuff like that.
It's a sensitive subject, but it's so valid for this time right now. Like everyone's going through it. Like I've gone through it. I'm sure you've gone through it, and it's and like you look back at our parents and they didn't really go through it that much, right? Like they didn't really have that much at all because because this wasn't as much of a thing back then. There was no phones. People were actually engaging with each other all the time. Like, it wasn't out of the norm for me to go approach you in the gym. That wasn't out of the norm. And like now you can say that it kind of is, right? To go and approach somebody and talk to someone, that's weird. I'd probably just rather text you instead.
Headphones
right?
in.
Headphones
and
in. Like, there's no one's present. That's the biggest thing is, I think, maybe you feel the same way. I'm curious. Like, I find that my consciousness is like the biggest issue. That's the biggest thing, is just like my decisions in the day-to-day life and what I actually do. I'm not doing it with actual consciousness. I'm just doing it like kind of on autopilot. I actually don't make the decisions. It's habitual, right? You just go through the motions as a normal day, and that normal day could be just really bad stuff for you. Like, maybe you're eating like food that's not good for you the whole day. You're consuming yourself in content the whole day, and then the whole day is gone and you haven't done anything. I think that's a huge issue that we need to address. We need to find ways. And I think like the dopamine detox thing, I think that's very actually beneficial. Like, if you give yourself time away from a lot of this stuff, and you give yourself time to like maybe pick up a book, maybe pick up a book, maybe go hit the gym. Like, a lot of people still don't even hit the gym, and like that, they don't even know what type of stress reducing that can give you.
Yeah, it's a conception of this is going to add stress, when in reality, even if you do 45 minutes of a light workout, it feels much better than 45 minutes of some more TikTok.
And if you haven't gone to the gym before, that 45 minutes is a game changer.
Yeah.
Like, that's going to do a lot for your physique if you're a new lifter. Like, that's going to change a lot. And if you're a new person, like I'm actually just recently getting into cardio. I don't know. Do you do a lot of cardio or?
So I do a lot of walking.
Okay.
That's my thing. I love
yeah.
walking because it produces exactly what we're talking about.
Yep.
It forces me. You can't walk and sit on your phone, especially walking the dog. Like, you're walking your dog. You're trying to pay a little bit of attention at the very least. So for me, that's been the big thing.
Yeah, I do. I like to do a lot of walking too, which sucks as soon as it gets cold. It's like, oh man, I can't even go on a walk anymore.
Yeah.
But I've been recently getting into cardio a lot more, and it's so nice to see like the gains that you make in cardiovascular endurance is the same as the gains you make in the gym. Like, I'm going up drastically faster. I've never run a 10K before, and just the other day I was able to do that, and it was with not really that much practice. I've done a few 5Ks over the last couple weeks, and I was like, you know what? This is totally a mental block. I can totally do a 10K. I know I could, and I just went for it, and I did it. And there's a lot of the times it's just our brains are holding us back. We're procrastinating drastically, and we don't need to. We just have to go and put the steps in motion, and like just like open up the book and start reading, as a good analogy. Like, just open it up, and I guarantee like you're already going to be a lot further.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think it's like, from my perspective, sometimes a combination of a couple of things, where it's like you were talking about, sometimes you're an autopilot. I think, like, when that purposeful and all that stuff, it kind of feels sometimes like we have an option if we're doing anything, where our parents' generation, that it's like you didn't really have an option. You had to get some shit done. Otherwise, you're stuck in your driveway. Your car's not going to run. Your house is going to fall apart. You didn't really have much of an option to do these things. So you're kind of forced into that purposefulness. And I think another thing, at least for me, maybe you can speak on this too, is we let each other get away with certain things, or we downplay the things that actually might benefit us. So let's say you're sitting here and you're saying, a dopamine detox, or, some time away from your phone, or running a 10K, or, doing something away from that, reading a book. I might sit here and say to you, that's silly, man. Well, you're a weirdo. Like, what are you talking about? Spending time away from your phone? Like, we're going to play some Call of Duty later. You better be online, man. Like, don't be such a freaking weirdo.
Yeah.
I think sometimes as friends, we let each other get away with and justify these habits that are leaving us going to bed feeling like garbage.
Yeah.
And waking up the next morning thinking today's going to be different, and then falling right back into it the same way.
A lot of the times it's because of your friends. Not because of completely, but they'll encourage you to just repeat the habits you've been doing. It's as if you're doing it with them. I mean, we're all habitual creatures. If we're doing the same things every single day, we're gonna just keep doing it, right? If I smoked weed yesterday, well, and I had these like kind of doubts, maybe I shouldn't be doing this, and maybe the same stuff starts creeping on me the next day. Okay, I'll just go to the store and I'll go buy another joint. It's no problem. easy could just get that high for me right away, right? If we just let that go and we just realize that you don't need these things, and you just actually put some steps into doing other things that are what you consider good for you,
Mhm.
you're putting yourself in a lot better situation. And I think a big thing for moving to Thailand is if you put yourself away from all the conditioning, because that's like a big thing, the conditioning of other people that you've been around your whole life that maybe have encouraged you to do things that you don't want to do. That helps in itself. And it could also hinder in a sense, like you might be putting yourself in a situation where now you're always going to do this too. But
Yeah.
I think if I'm trying to approach it with a better mindset, approach it with like, hey, I'm going here for growth.
Yeah.
And I think that already puts me in a good setting where it helps me realize that, hey, this is going to be a very growing period for me. And there's going to be trials and tribulations like anything else.
Yeah.
But if I have this mindset, then I think I'm already in a better place with that.
Yeah. And do you see yourself too, like a bit of more of the opportunity of, and this isn't to talk bad about friends or anything, because
Yeah.
everybody has their own goal and what they want their life to look like. So just because, I mean, mine doesn't look like yours doesn't mean yours is wrong.
Yeah.
But do you think it opens the door for you for opportunity of making those changes just simply because, let's say you do make a change and I perceive if you were here today sitting in this chair and I'm like, Bailey, you're a weirdo for doing that. Let's say you go to Thailand, or you said you went to Australia, you go to these places, it opens the door to be like, hey, I don't really have that connection. If someone does come up to me and say that's weird, oh, cool. I don't really know you. So that doesn't really hold a lot of value. I can make a change without these outside voices kind of coming in quite as hard.
Yeah, I think you can make the change if you just dedicate yourself to making the change.
Yeah.
You just have to really like accept and well, again, it goes back to just having a more long-term mindset, realizing that it is going to take time for me to make changes away from all these habits. But if I have the mindset, hey, I'm going to make this change. Like, for example, one of the ideas I have for some content that I want to put out is I want to do a 75 hard challenge. You know what that is?
Yep.
Yeah. So it's like no smoking, no drinking, pick a diet and stick to it. 45 minutes exercise indoors and 45 minutes exercise outdoors. A gallon of water, and 10 pages per day, I think, of a self-development book. I think those are all of them. And I want to add creating a piece of content every day to that too. And I think if I like, it's a very difficult. And I think about this now, and I think about like the grand scheme of it. 75 days, that's a long time.
Mm-hmm.
That's like 2.5 months. That's quite a long time to stick to the same routine. But if I have this mindset, hey, like I know I can do this. I just have to discipline myself. I know that I can get this done. And I also say like, I am going to do this. Yeah. It's very much what you tell yourself you're going to do. I am going to get this done. Then I will get it done. And that's the plan, is I want to start doing that when I get to Thailand, have this, because obviously I can't do it now because I'm about to fly for 30 hours.
Yeah, it's hard to
on Tuesday.
It's hard to get 45 minutes of outdoor activity in an airplane.
In an airplane, yeah. My bunch of brain fog the next day because my sleep schedule's screwed up. Like, but yeah,
doing push-ups on the wing.
Honestly, like that's the play. But yeah, that's the idea, and that's just setting out these challenges for yourself. Like the one small challenge that I set out for myself was the 10K, and that was a really cool thing for me to just accomplish and beat, and that was a win that I had. And now it's like I have this idea for a big challenge, and this big challenge is going to help me grow. One, on the content side of things, because I'm going to be posting content on this the entire time. And two, just mentally, I'm going to be feeling a lot better. I'm going to be eating healthy. So that right away that's a huge thing. A lot of people, like, they don't even realize the benefits they could have if they just stopped eating like garbage food. Like the last couple of days, it's actually weird. Like I've been on a cut since the 29th of August, and the last like 4 or 5 days, I just have let myself loose. I'm like, hey, I'm leaving to Thailand. I'm not going to worry about what I'm eating. My family's having some supper. I'm going to join them. If I want some junk food, I'm going to have it. I don't care. And it's crazy like how much less good I feel. Like after going almost strict on animal-based foods like meats, like red meat and fruit. That's pretty much all I've been eating. I felt great and like clear in the brain. And like now it's like it doesn't feel as good. And today I feel fine. Like it is what it is. But you can definitely feel the difference after you do consistently like good eating compared to not. I don't know if you've like experienced that before too.
Yeah, it's actually pretty crazy. It's weird the way your body starts to crave that good food. Once you get in the habit of eating it, you get out, you eat some whatever McDonald's or some extra pizza or something like that, and your brain almost goes back to like, oh, I kind of miss the, those, like you said, the simple kind of feel good foods that I think a lot of people perceive as not being tasting as good.
Yeah.
It's like your brain is almost like, no, you know what? I'm kind of sick of this crap. Like I don't actually feel that great eating this.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then you actually notice that, where I think if you just commit to the garbage, you don't even really notice how crappy you end up kind of feeling, or even maybe even performing in work or in working out.
If we can pause, I need to use the bathroom.
Yeah, do it.
Yeah, do it. Awesome.
I'll just kind of like the introspective stuff and all that. Is there things that you're looking forward to doing? Like, is there some gyms or some experiences that you're like, hey,
travel side, like this is gonna be fun. Yeah.
Or even food maybe.
Yeah. So right off the get-go, I actually have a hike planned for this weekend. So I'm literally jumping right into it. So I land on Thursday morning, straightaways, and it's actually funny. So the flights, the way that it kind of works is I fly from Winnipeg to Vancouver, and I leave from Vancouver at 7:15 p.m. and it's a 12-hour flight to Istanbul, Turkey. It's their capital, I think, which I've never been to. That's another cool place I'm going to. That's cool. So I leave at 7:15 p.m. and it's a 12-hour flight. So you'd think I'd be landing at 7:15 a.m.
Yeah.
I land at 6 p.m. that time. So it's like,
you're time traveling.
Yeah.
Man.
Well, I'm time traveling. It's really, really weird. Like it's like a crazy shift. So pretty much there's a 12-hour flight there. And then there's a 9.5-hour flight from Turkey to Bangkok. And the entire time's gonna be nighttime. So that's already gonna be like, oh, this is really screwing with your head and screwing with your circadian rhythm and everything. But luckily, the same thing kind of happened in Australia. We landed in the morning, and if you stay up throughout the whole day and you just don't go to bed, you can actually fix your sleep schedule pretty quickly within a couple days. So it's not too bad. But I have a hike planned for Saturday. So right off the get-go, I'm going to what was it called? Katao National Park or something like that. There's lots of cool views there already. And as I'm a big like nature guy, and so hikes are like the coolest thing, but I'm starting in the city. So I'm starting out in Bangkok because I was going to go to this island called Koh Samui, but in November, it's actually their rainiest season. So they rain like 17 days out of the month on the islands. I guess it's surrounded, it's on an island, right? But Bangkok was only like 5 days. So I was like, okay, I'm going to stay in Bangkok, the city, for the first month. And I have my place booked for a month, and then I'm going to go to the islands, and then I'm going to be doing lots of like nature travel and stuff like that. But luckily I found some cool hikes already for the first weekend. I'm excited for like a lot of the foods as well. Like I'm going to go exploring through the marketplaces in the nighttime. Apparently the city is just always buzzing. Like it's kind of like Toronto or London, except it takes it to a whole new level.
Yeah.
It's actually the city's active like 24/7. Like it's constantly moving. So I want to go see the markets and see kind of just what it's like, experience a lot of that. Like I'm a big into like just experiencing different cultures. Like I love just seeing what's going on and what's different.
Just kind of being a passenger along the ride of like, hey, this is happening around me kind of thing. Take it in, grab all
if you switch your mindset, like a lot of people are scared to be the minority.
Yeah.
I like being the minority. It's fun. Like it's something different. Like it's challenging. And I think the most common thing I hear when people ask me if I'm going to Thailand is, what they say is, you're adventurous. You must be like, I would never dare. Like I don't really view it as like much adventurous. I just think like this is really cool. Like this is going to be a cool experience to try out, just trying different things, as many different things as I can.
It's kind of freeing, I imagine, in a way too, because like you said, you're going to be in the minority to a certain extent, and you get to be a bystander, and that responsibility kind of gets pulled off a little bit of like, hey, you know what? Like I'm just here to observe a little bit and partake in what's already occurring. I'm not responsible to construct anything in this area. I'm responsible to participate.
Exactly. And it also gives me some ease of mind. I think as a new content creator, the hardest thing for me is just to press the record button. Like that maybe it was the same for you at first.
I mean, this podcast itself, right? We started, we had to hit the record button twice.
Yeah, exactly. But like just literally just starting the recording and just starting to talk like to the camera or anything like that. That's the most intimidating thing as a new creator. Like it's just, you're putting yourself out there. And I think it's really freeing because I'm in the minority and barely anybody knows English. I can just go around my life and no one gives a shit what I'm doing. And I really know that this way. And of course, it's probably the same here. Like it's a mental block, of course. Like I can go around and I can vlog my life and in Winkler, and people aren't really going to care what I'm doing.
But it is a smaller community of people who know,
Yeah.
know someone who at the very least knows you, and they
Exactly.
might know you directly. And then you have that responsibility of, oh, okay, now I'm going to have to deal with some questions or, some criticism or whatever it is, where Thailand, I'm sure you're not going to run into too many people who know your mom and dad or who know someone,
No one's going to know me. I'm completely unknown. And I like that idea. Like I get to go out there and I get to, I plan to do a lot of vlogging at first. Like I just want to just record everything and just put it online. Cause what do I really have to lose?
What inspired that? Just out of curiosity, just
like the vlogging and the content creation.
To go there and kind of implement those things.
Oh man. I love just traveling. Like I started out last year actually, or I kind of knew I wanted to get into traveling like a long time ago, but I didn't really know. Like I guess there's always like a mental block before you actually go do it. And so I went to Belize last year in November. One of my buddies, his parents own a house there. Like he started his engineering business. They do like a sewage treatment plant in Belize, and I asked if I could stay there. So I literally stayed there. My buddy wasn't even there. It was me and his dad. So me and his dad were just hanging out in Belize at his house, and I was there for a month. And like that was my first solo trip. And I've never done any solo traveling before that. And that was like so eye-opening for me. I just went on hikes by myself, and like I was in nature on my own, and it was just, I don't even know how to explain. Like it was just so freeing. It gave me this sense of like just relief. I would go and jump off cliffs, like good cliff diving into water, like stuff I'd never even stuff I've always dreamed of doing. Like I always dreamed of doing that stuff, and I put it into practice. I lived the life that I wanted, and it made me realize like I can actually go and travel anywhere. It doesn't need to, like Australia made me realize that for sure. Like I traveled across the world, and I was like, oh, I guess you can do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
You actually can travel. I guess there's always this mental block in the way, but that's what inspired me to really just go all out on it.
So do you, I imagine Australia is going to be a little bit more developed, maybe more similar to where we live.
Yeah.
Other than the -40. I don't think Australia gets too much of that, which
Not at all.
I'm sure, like you said, is one of the reasons to get the heck out of here.
Like,
but
and it's so weird. Like when you go to Australia, the roads are so nice, and like you wonder why.
Yeah.
But it's because of all the cold and snow. Like this, it breaks our roads, it destroys it, and like there's beautiful roads. Like driving is amazing out there. You'll never have any problems. There's never any bumps or potholes or anything like that. Like almost never at all.
That's a dream in itself.
Yeah. But you got to learn to drive on the left side of the road.
How was that?
Oh man, it was so weird.
Did you ever accidentally like turn, change lanes?
Yeah,
and you're like
absolutely,
on the wrong side?
Absolutely, like multiple times. But I mean, it was mainly at the beginning. The main funny thing that we always did was so the wiper and the signal is on the opposite sides. So I would hit the wiper so many times on accident. And it was funny. It was me and a couple buddies that went out to travel, and it was a meme how everybody did it when we first started driving. Everybody would hit the freaking wipers.
It's probably an instant giveaway. Like if you're from another country, that there goes another one.
Yeah, exactly. And then I came back to Winkler and I'm driving, and then I hit the freaking wipers again because now I'm used to the other way. But
everyone's worried about, like you said before, the circadian rhythm getting back in, getting sleep and stuff. Meanwhile, you're trying to clean your windows and plus 30 and clear.
I'm just trying to signal the right way. Yeah. Man. Like I'm just trying to go the right way. But Thailand's the same. Thailand's the same left side driving as well. So I'm already pretty used to it now. So that's no problem.
Oh, it is. I didn't actually know that.
Yeah.
Like, is that steering wheel on the other side or is it the same side? Do you know?
I think it's the other side. Australia is the other side. So I would imagine it's the same for Thailand.
Did you drive standard at all in Australia?
I didn't know.
Because I feel like that would be some, like using your left hand to shift.
That would have been different. Have you done a lot of standard driving?
Yeah, so growing up, my mom forced us all to learn standard before we were allowed to go buy a vehicle. Yeah, she forced us that we had to learn how to drive standard. So my sister taught me, and she got exposed to a wild ride of her younger brother trying to learn how to drive standard.
How did that go?
Oh man, she was very patient with me.
Yeah.
And it was in her car too that she taught me how to do it, and she was really patient. So I learned, and she let me do it and kind of probably burn out her clutch in her teal green Chevy Cavalier, but we made it.
Yeah, I haven't had a lot of experience with standard driving. My one of my buddies, when I first went to Toronto for summer sales my first year, he had a standard vehicle. And so sometimes I didn't bring my car out the first year. I just went with him because he was from Winnipeg. And so on the road trip there,
you guys drove?
Yeah, we drove to Toronto. It's like a 24-hour drive. On the road trip there, I was learning how to drive standard.
That's awesome.
The whole ways. I was just like, all right, let's just throw yourself. And that's the biggest thing I've always done is I just throw myself into shit. Like, let's just do it. Like, I learn by doing. And I think that's like, for everybody, that's how it should be. Like, you learn by doing the most. Like, you can read about something as much as you want, but if you don't actually do it, like, you're not going to learn it as nearly as fast as if you just throw yourself into the situation. But it was pretty rough. I stalled like so many times.
It's like it's a great example of that learn to do it type of thing. Like, you can talk about it all you want. You can have a perspective about how to shift the best way, but unless you hop in that car and actually work with what you have, you're never going to have develop that coordination to, simply drive a standard car.
Yeah. It applies to everything. Like it's every single thing. So
where do you think, like going to Thailand, going to Australia, doing a sales job, all that stuff, where do you think you picked that up from? Like, what do you think, like, what has developed that, maybe desire to do those things?
What got me out of the norm?
Yeah. What kind of triggered that?
That's a good question. I really don't know, because it's funny. My parents aren't like that at all. My parents, like, the most traveling they do, like my parents are pretty well off. Like, they got good money, and they're chilling. The most traveling they do is go to Mexico. Like, they love their Mexico trips, and they plan like 2 or 3 a year. Every single year they go to Mexico and they have their resorts and they have their drinks and they're good to go. That's all they need. And I tried that. Like, I've done that with them. Like, I've gone to Mexico with them, done the resort living, and it's fun. Like, I enjoy it. It's not like a boring experience, but I realized that there's such a small portion of the world. And I don't know what kind of brought it on, but I was just like, there is so much more that I want to see. Like, I want to see Europe, which I think, on a side tangent, Europe's something I'd want to see with like a partner. I feel like with a wife. Like, I feel like that's just more of like a touristy thing. But I want to see like Europe. I want to see Thailand. I want to see Australia. I want to go around the world. I want to see, like, just see things and see, like, I can see things on picture, but I mean, everyone knows that you take a picture, it's not going to look nearly as good as what these can do.
Yeah.
Like, it looks way better in person. And there's just lots of stuff that I feel like we deprive ourselves of seeing in our lives. We just kind of stick to one location.
Yeah.
And I don't see why we need to do that. I mean, there's so much out there, and there's no reason to limit yourself to one spot. Like, my ideal life, my ideal future, and what I would love if I could have multiple home bases in multiple different places. That'd be awesome. I can go travel here, have my vacation home there, and I can go here. It's my main base. And that would be ideal, because it just gives me just the sense of location freedom. Because I don't like feeling like I'm tied down
You're trapped.
And that's a lot of times what Winkler has made me feel like, in a lot of sense. And like, all love to it. It's a great place, and it's got me where I am today. But that's kind of what brought me to really wanting to just try different things.
Has that increased as you've done more of it? Has that desire to like see different things and experience different, sites and foods and all that stuff, has that increased as you've done it more and more as well?
Drastically.
Yeah.
It's like every time I do another trip, okay, when's the next trip?
Kind of cracks that door open, hey?
It's like tattoos. Like, probably for you, right? You get the first tattoo, right? Yeah. And it's like, all right, that's pretty nice. I'm gonna get another one right here, actually. Yeah. You got another idea. Oh, I'm gonna go get it right here.
Yeah.
It's just, when you start, it's hard to stop. You love it.
Yeah. Which I think
love it or you hate it.
Yeah. Which is kind of cool in a way, like, where it does open that desire for more, or for like, gets you out of a rhythm or a routine. And I think that sometimes you can get stuck in that. I'm easily to blame for that too. I think that's sometimes when I'm at my worst is when I'm stuck in, the consistency is one thing, but like you were saying before, the routine can oftentimes, not only be consistent in good habits, but it can form bad habits, which might not look like substances or, certain things, but can just be certain roadblocks, like you said, like going to Belize and seeing it and experiencing it and booking that trip. Sometimes that routine can prevent those things, because you almost fear of getting out of it, that security or that safety. And I'm just as much to blame for that. I'm hesitant sometimes of like, hey, am I going to take this step or am I going to try this thing? I had the opportunity, I think, like a lot of people, my parents separated when I was like 13 or something like that. And sometimes, you know, there's definitely struggles with that, but I would say a perspective that I feel like I was gifted with in that as well is being a little bit free in terms of who I can become or who directions I can go, of not being required to, hey, you got to live up to this person's expectation, this person's expectation. I feel like the expectations for me had dropped quite drastically. It was like, you know, he's coming from this, or this has happened. So, you know, as long as he doesn't get on drugs, I think he's going to be okay. So it's kind of like, hey, you know what? As long as I don't get on drugs, I can do anything. I can try and open a gym, and if it works, sweet. If it doesn't, whatever, I'll try something else. I can start a podcast, and if it works, sweet. If it doesn't, try something else. Make content, take those risks. And I think of that as a bit of a gift, that sometimes I can see other people almost get stuck in these expectations of all that. Did you ever feel that? Like that's kind of where I was very curious. Like when you're traveling and you're doing these things, was there any resistance that you're facing as you're getting into it? Like of, hey, Bailey, you know what? Just stay home. Don't be like, why you got to go to these places? We miss you at home, man.
Yeah. I mean, no mother wants to see the baby leave the nest, right?
Yeah.
And I'm the baby of the family. There's only me and my brother. And my mom has always had the more so resistance. Like when I brought up door-to-door sales to my parents, like you can imagine like the look on their face when I like, hey, I want to go do door-to-door sales. Scam, pyramid scheme, like bullshit. No way. It's not even real. It's a scam. Don't do it. But I was actually very surprised with like my dad's reaction. So my dad, when I was kind of growing up, I was like, my dad's very work oriented. He's very much in like what's the collar of like the physical labor? What's like is that blue collar? Is that
Blue collar would be.
Yeah. So my dad's blue collar work. He builds bins, with grain bins.
Okay.
And he started that business in Saskatchewan. It's called Beta Construction. And he was very successful doing that. And as a kid, my brother right away is like, he took after my dad. My dad wanted him to work for him. And so my brother did that. And my dad wanted me to do the same. He wanted me to work under him, do this, this physical labor job. And I did a few times, like multiple times. I helped him out or whatever. I never liked it, never enjoyed it. And like, I kind of made me feel like a bit of a loser on the inside. Like I was like, oh man, like I'm going to be a failure in life because I don't like this. And like, that's, when you're a kid, you only observe what your parents show you, right? Yeah. They condition you, they show you life and everything like that, what to expect. And so I thought like I was going to be a failure because I didn't like this and I wanted to do something else. And so I started to show resistance at a pretty young age, resistance from the norm. And I think that's kind of what helped me get to where I am now, because if I would have just stuck to that and did the Beta Construction business with him, I wouldn't have done sales job. I wouldn't have done door-to-door sales. I would have been like, no, I have a success. I have a job. I can't do that. Right? Yeah. I can't try something different. That's crazy. So a lot of it's just limiting beliefs for some people, right? They express their concerns to you based on what they've seen in life. They've done this 9 to 5, so that's what they know. And so if they're telling you, hey, you can't do this because this is what you should be doing, I take everything with a little bit of a grain of salt in that sense.
Yeah.
And so when I brought up this door-to-door sales job to my dad and my parents, my mom showed some resistance because she's like, whatever. And my dad a little bit too, like, just like, hey, watch out for scams. But at the end of the day, he said to me, which I'll never forget, he said to me, you're your own man now. You make your own decisions.
That's cool.
And I was like, that was a really moving moment for me in life. I didn't think he even knows like how much that like kind of helped me, because I felt like I earned his respect after that first summer.
He trusts you that you can take care of you.
Yeah, because he kind of made me feel a little bit like, again, like made me feel a little bit like a loser. He kind of like fed into like, hey, you're being lazy. You're not doing the work. Like you're not doing work that you should be doing. And that made me like feel that way.
Yeah.
And so when I finally found some success in sales and something different, I finally felt like I earned his trust. I earned my family's trust, and I earned that they know that I can handle myself now. And when he said that, that was really awesome. And so it's the same thing with Thialand now. Like this is another big venture where I'm trying something completely different, completely out of the norm again. and my dad and my parents, there's not any resistance anymore. And that's a good feeling. Like,
That's cool. Do you think your advice to someone in a similar get that over there similar position, um would you say, like, would you give them the advice to kind of to go out and maybe um like your dad couldn't trust you, like let's say he wanted you to be in this pocket because he couldn't trust you outside of that pocket yet,
yeah,
and then you went and you kind of earned that, you showed him, hey, this is what I can do.
yeah,
I think you said a very similar perspective on even content. You're like, hey, I've just started doing this, and you have a very similar perspective as with your parents, where you're like, hey, I'm gonna show them, I'm gonna allow them to the opportunity to trust me after I've backed myself a bit. Do you find that? And then you said that with content too. I'm gonna put out 50 videos so people can trust that this is what I'm doing and I'm trying to add value.
yeah.
What advice, like if someone else was in your shoes and they were saying that same sort of thing, like, hey, my parents want me to, they have a concrete business and they want me to do concrete, but I don't know if I really want to do that. Like, what would you say to them?
Yeah. If they told me, hey, I don't know if I want to do that, I would say go against the grain, man. Go against the grain. Realize that. Well, first off, I'd ask, what do you want to do? What actually drives you? What gives you motivation? What makes you wake up in the morning and be like, hey, like I want this. And I think for me, when I started doing the managing role of this year, the sales, that is like when I started to be able to teach people, that's when I realized, okay, I want to be able to help people. That's when I
Mm,
like kind of found like what I feel like is my purpose now, like being able to help others, being able to give them some motivation, some purpose in their life, help them find purpose as well. Um, so I'd say go against the grain. If you have a passion, if you have something you desire that you want, and you think that, hey, if I actually put my mind to this, I could probably do it.
yeah.
You should do it. Like, well, what is it that you want, and what steps can you take to actually get it? Because there's good chance something that you've been thinking of this whole time. You probably had this in your mind the entire time. You've wanted to do this, but there's just this limiting belief. That's the main thing that's holding you back. Like, can I actually do it?
Mhm.
And I still have that with content creation, right? I'm still in this phase where I'm trying to break free of that limiting belief and realize it doesn't matter what anybody thinks. It doesn't matter. I want to do this because this is going to help me. This is going to help my mental health. This is going to help other people, hopefully down the line. And if it's something that's driven by passion and purpose, and you actually feel like you're doing something good, then why the hell not? You know, why can't you do what you want? Why do you have to make money how everybody else is making money?
Yeah.
It's not the only way to do so. And so that's what I would say.
Cool. I think that's super helpful for. I mean, I wish I would have heard that a lot when I was younger, like a perspective like that, because I think a lot of people can relate to that feeling, and not knowing like what that feeling is, not knowing what's the next step. Is this okay? Am I okay? Is there something wrong with me? Like, why is it that I'm like this? I mean, sometimes we can just simply get lazy and we don't want to do
Yeah.
anything. But it's like you said, it's you add that step of, hey, what? Don't just not do things, but in that process of not doing the things you don't want to do, find the things you do want to do and pursue those things.
Yeah. Realize you're not perfect too.
Yeah.
Realize that you're going to make mistakes. Like,
Yeah.
you are going to make hopefully a lot of them. You should like be grateful for making mistakes,
Yeah.
because that's literally what shows you. You win or you learn. It goes right back to
Yeah.
that. You win or you learn.
And no one likes anything better. People love to see people fail. They love to criticize. They love to have a better idea than you and not actually do it. But what they love even more is redemption.
Yeah.
They love to see someone who failed come back and succeed, and maybe even bring them along the journey, or allow them to come along the journey in spite of failing in the past.
Yeah, and I've seen pushback from other things that I've tried in my life, and this is actually pursuing this content creation is I've actually seen a lot of positive support from a
Oh,
lot of
cool.
people, which is awesome. Like, it's actually motivated me to like realize that I am doing something that's good,
Yeah.
regardless if it's going to take a year for it to be profitable or 2 years for it to be profitable. I know that what I'm doing is with the intention is good.
Yeah.
And that's all I can ask for. I want to be able to provide value and hopefully be somebody's shoulder to lean on. You know, they can come to my videos and they feel like they've found a place where they feel comfortable. They feel like they can get some value from, and they can take it and put some action into their life with it. And hopefully it betters them. Because
Yeah.
I've had that, you know, I was encouraged from this, from just watching YouTube. Like YouTube is what kind of like, there's certain YouTubers that I followed, Hamza, Jack Hopkins, a couple just names to spitball. And they've encouraged me to, be the person that I want to be. Don't shy away from who is your inner person that's like trying to like get out, like there's obviously somebody in there, and so many people like hide that for so many years, and so many people, they never even show that. They just stick to what the norm is because they're scared to get out of the norm. And again, like I said before, I'm totally fine embarrassing myself. I'm totally fine just throwing caution to the wind and being like, hey, if you don't like my videos, I don't care. And I've said that on Instagram already before, like in a story. I'm like, I don't care if you want to unfollow, go ahead and unfollow.
Yeah.
This is what I'm going for.
Yeah.
And if you want to stick around, awesome. Hey, I'm here to help out, here to provide some value to you. But if you don't want to, that's totally fine.
Yeah.
You go do what you want.
And I have to give you credit on that too. Like, I know the resistance of social media, directly of people that surround you, and then the resistance of social media in terms of the voice that can sometimes creep inside your head, of what you're doing. And hey, am I doing it? Could I do it this way, or should I do it this way, or should I even do it at all? And kind of these resistances. So, I mean, from my perspective, not that saying that you need it or anything like that, but I give you a lot of credit for going and putting it out there. Because that's the only way. If it's not perfect off the start, that's the only way it improves. And that's the only way you see these different ways of doing different things that someone else might not see because they haven't even tried it yet. And that's the only way you can, if that voice is coming out and this is what you're trying to do and you're trying to offer value. I mean, you're doing a disservice if you don't do it, if you don't at least try. And I give you a lot of credit for that. Just seeing you pop out videos and everything like that and being like, hey, I'm going to give you my perspective. I'm going to try to do this thing. I'm going to learn it, and I'm going to put it out there. I'm going to put myself out there. And that's I think extremely hard I'm going to say me, like you said, the hardest thing is hitting that record button because you're the one facing the camera.
Yeah.
So if someone doesn't like it, it's very easy to take it as, oh, they don't like me because I'm on the other end of the camera, and that hurts. It hurts to be like, you don't like me. And it takes steps to, I think for me at least, takes steps to kind of, that's okay. Like you said, that's okay. You don't need to like me. You don't need to follow me. There's someone else for you out there. I'm not going to take that personal. Go find that person for you, because hopefully that person is making content.
Yep.
And you can find them, because if they're not out there, that's unfortunate that you don't have a source of inspiration and motivation. Just simply because the person that you could look up to isn't providing you that. They're staying in their cave again, and all kind of doing a disservice in terms of who they are.
I think a lot of it's envy. I think from the other side, from the viewer's perspective, a lot of it's envy. They look at you. Like, I could look at you from one of two perspectives. I can look at you, hey, this guy's making content. He's pushing out things he likes. I don't like it. I would like to do that, but I can't. And that's too outside of the grain. Like, it's a lot of it's envy in that sense. Or I can look at it the way I do, which is I admire that you've been putting out content for a long time. Like, how long have you been at this? Like, how long have you been doing personal training and putting out content online?
Oh man, a long time. Like, probably shortly after the introduction of like getting on Instagram and stuff. It's probably a couple years after getting on Instagram. Then it was trying to promote things. I look back at too, like you said, like you're different things. You're light years ahead of where I started. Like, I got a memory of back in the day of Instagram, and it was like a picture of my shirt with the logo of these shirts that I made. I've talked about this before on the podcast of like, I made 250 of these shirts for my personal training business that I had probably 6 clients for and maybe 200 followers, something like that. And I made 250 shirts. I sold like 15 of them. And I got a memory of the picture. And I remember putting that out there and just being like, oh, I got to do this. I got to do that. And it had like no likes and no engagement. Sold 15 of these things. And I look back and I'm like kind of embarrassed at first from it. I'm like, oh shit, you're an idiot, man. No one cared. Why did you think anybody cared? Yeah. But then I look back at that. I'm like, if I wouldn't have done that, I wouldn't have taken a step off of that. Yeah. And I wouldn't do that. That at least going back, there is that brief moment of like, oh shit, that's embarrassing. But I'm kind of glad it's embarrassing too, because it means things have progressed.
Yeah, it's scary putting out those first pieces of content. And you're like, oh shoot, like what are my friends gonna think? What are my parents gonna think? Oh, like, but that's what I admire about you, man. You don't care. You don't seem to care at all what anybody thinks. You put out content. You put out what you like.
Yeah.
You go to the gym. You like like that one video that guy responded to you on, the training to failure is bullshit. You you didn't care that he responded. Like it gave you good publicity, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But you didn't give a shit what anybody thought about that. You posted what you wanted. You give your perspective, your genuine, authentic perspective, which I think is so important. If you want to grow on social media, you have to be authentic.
Yeah.
Like, I can't be anyone but me. If I'm anyone but me, people will see right through that shit.
Yeah, and
Instantly.
Again, that's why I say sometimes like people like yourself are light years ahead, and I've talked to other people who I'm like, oh man, I wish I would have had that perspective at this point, like you're at, where it's like I'm gonna put this out there, I'm gonna do it my like a little bit my way and find who I am in this thing. Whereas there was so many times where I'm like I'm trying to be this or trying to pretend to be that and trying to put out that piece of content. And that not only was that content not that great, but I look back on that content and I watch it and I'm like, I'm not as much embarrassed as I am like disappointed.
But I want, like, I'm curious. I bet you're grateful for that stuff though. You're grateful for that version of you putting in that work. Like that must have been like, that's awesome.
Well, and to that disappointment and seeing myself pretending to be something I'm not, watching that, I'm like, hey, this is a reminder of don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that again, man. Like try your best, which is always hard. Again, like that record button does something.
Yeah.
That lens does something.
Yeah.
And it's hard to do that. But that reminder of like, hey, you're going to be disappointed if you start pretending you're something you're not. Be the person you are. Cause at the very least, like you said, you're going to learn from it and you're going to move forward and you can look back and be like, man, this is a little bit, I could have done this differently. I could have done this better. I could have done this from a different perspective, but that's who I was then. I was, that picture of that t-shirt, I was trying to do my best and I can look back and kind of laugh at that, where there's other pieces where I'm like, that's disappointing that, I thought I had to do that, or I thought I had to go that direction. And I'm not going to do that again. I'm going to do my best to be who I am and put out what I believe. So when it's that failure, like training to failure video, I look back and I'm like, oh man, I could have touched on a little bit more. I could have given a little more value that people could have used in that video. But at the same time, I'm not disappointed because I know what I was trying to say and I know what I believe. And I know if someone came and was truly interested in what I was talking about in that video, I could supply them with some value from my perspective.
You're giving the best perspective that you can from your point of view.
Yes.
That's all you can really do online. I'm instantly finding out, like the first couple videos that I made, it was me, like, okay, I have a setup here where I have the tripod on the table and I'm just looking at the camera. And it's like, it's intimidating. Like, I'm looking just right at the camera and it's just me and the camera and no one else is there, but I'm still like nervous, like, oh, like kind of shaking, like, oh shoot, like what do I say to the camera? Instantly I'm learning every single day. I'm learning today. This is natural. This is way more natural.
Feels good, right?
It feels good. Like I don't feel like this pressure, this like I'm talking to, I'm trying to view the camera as myself at a younger age. That's the person that I'm trying to reach.
Yeah.
I'd love to reach younger Bailey who was stuck in just modern addictions all the time. That's what I'm trying to talk to, but I still just see a lens right now. And I know that's going to change over time, but like this, even right now, it's like, we can have a conversation here. I feel like my words are flowing a lot better. My speech is a lot more conducive and it's easier to come across. And like, you're learning every single day, especially with content creation, especially you're learning so much. You're going to make mistakes. And that's the cool thing, man. You made mistakes, but you're here. You've learned so much. I'm sure drastic amounts every day. You're still learning. You just can't lose if you just have a good mindset about it. And you just keep putting out stuff that you love. If you love it and you want to put that out, like what's the harm? What disservice are you doing?
Yeah. You're not. Yeah. Especially on social media, people, if they don't like it or they don't think it's doing a good thing for them, they can just move on.
Yeah.
Like you do not have to sit. That's
they can swipe to the next video.
Yeah. That's what always baffles me about people who like comment and they put out negativity in either comments or even sometimes in video form. Like, you realize that this is a massive landscape that you can move on from.
It's funny, man. I find it hilarious. Like I had somebody on my first video was titled 3 Reasons Why I'm Moving to Thailand and Why You Should Too. And somebody wrote in the comment, cause he likes lady boys. And I was like, I'm like, why? I'm not going to get offended by this. It's a funny comment. Like people are going to take a lot of that to heart. And I'm sure like you probably had this, like there's going to be bumps in the road where people are going to leave comments, hate comments or some shit, like really like deep rooted, like they know you or something. And I'm I'm sure it's gonna hurt at some points. Like I'm gonna have that feeling, but like at the end of the day, with all the training I've had with door to door,
Oh,
with all that stuff, all the rejection I've gotten, all that bullshit, like I feel like that led me to this.
yes.
That if I didn't have that, there's no way I'd be sitting right here. There's no chance. I wouldn't have had the confidence to do so. I was the kid in my when I was at the restaurant with my family where I was like just like I was reading the menu and I'm like all shy, like trying to like read
Yeah.
up to
Trying to get your mom to say your order
yeah,
for you.
like
Yeah.
I can't stop smiling. Like
Yeah.
my face is red.
Yeah.
And like looking back at that, I'm like, man, like that's a lot of progress. That's awesome. You
It
know?
is. And that's what I mean by I wish, like you're light years ahead, because that rejection process, I mean, in the sales job definitely happened there, but there was a whole nother level of it in terms of like the content creation side for me so far. I mean, there still is like that rejection, but it's a lot easier to handle as you get used to it, where you're coming in from a perspective of like, hey, I've faced a decent amount of this, just out of necessity and out of learning, where that is pretty sweet. Like and you get to look at a comment like that on your video and you get a laugh
I get a laugh.
yeah.
And I think that's kind of the audience that I want to target. Like guys that just haven't quite had the experience yet. They just like a lot, like I said before, a lot of them want to jump into something that they're not ready for. If I can target an audience that I think they don't have the experience and find them like an alternative, something that actually helps them feel like they're progressing and moving forward.
Yeah.
That's what I want to be able to provide. And of course, there's going to be different ways for me to do so. But if I can find a way that I can provide people steps to progress in their life, whatever steps it would be, helping them in sales or whatever it is,
Yeah.
that's like, that would bring me such joy. Like
Yeah.
it make me feel so grateful. And I think that's like the most fulfilling type of work that anybody can do.
Yeah. That's really cool. In the process of content creation and kind of this new step, what has been the things you've learned so far? Like in terms of, I mean, anything in terms of the way you do it, like the formats you use. I mean, the audio, anything, even from the topics. Is there anything that you've kind of in this kind of the brief kind of time you've jumped in that you're like, oh man, that I learned if I do this is a lot better.
Yeah. So the filmmaking and editing side, that's like I'm completely brand new to that. Like I've never really had experience with it. Like I took like a film class in high school. That's about all I got. You know?
Yeah.
I remember you ever seen you've seen the Spider-Man movies, right?
Yep.
Like the Amazing Spider-Man with Andrew Garfield.
Yep.
Yeah. So there's a scene in the movie, and this in the first one, I think, where Spider-Man is playing basketball, or Flash Thompson is playing basketball, and he's bullying the kids in the gym class or whatever. And Spider-Man comes up and he like goes and he takes the ball and he dunks it and breaks the backboard and pulls it off the thing. I remember in film class, we actually redid that scene. So like, it was, and I am looking back and it was terrible. Like it was just like, just such terrible quality. Like that's the most filmmaking experience I've ever even had.
Yeah.
So like in terms of I'm not trying to put pressure on that side of things. I'm realizing, okay, I'm a brand new beginner to this. I'm going to do like the bare minimum and just try to like put out content as much as I can. Like not thinking too much like on quality side yet, like just putting it out and just getting it in front of the screen is like what I'm trying to do. Cause I feel like if I think too much, I need to make a 10 out of 10 video.
Yeah.
It's going to be a 5 out of 10 video. Like it's not going to work that way.
And you may never even get it out.
Yeah.
Because when is anything 10 out of 10?
Yeah. I'm going to think way too much overthinking. So I could take an editing course, a filmmaking course, and do all that before I put out videos, or I could just put it out and I could see what happens and see what sticks, see what lands, see what doesn't. And so the quality has been pretty bad. Like the first video I made, it's funny. I don't know if you saw it or not.
Yep.
The first video I made, I meant to do it in the short form video.
Okay.
Like it was meant to be like a short or a reel. And so I filmed it vertically.
Yep.
And the screen, you can't now turn it sideways because now it was filmed vertically. So I was like, all right, well, I already made a mistake there, and I could redo this whole thing, or I could just put it out.
Yep.
And realize that it's vertical. People are going to see it vertically and just not care about that and decide not to care about it. And that's what I did. I just was like, hey, no worries. I'm just going to put it out and that's going to be fine. And the editing side, same thing. I've just been learning the basics, like how to cut smoothly so that it kind of flows nicely, the conversation or whatever I'm talking about, learning the basics there. And then on the actual filming side, I'm in like right away is like one of the first learning lessons that I got from it was, oh, I gotta like make sure I'm like having pauses in between my sentence, maintaining eye contact, like the basic sales principles. Like I take everything I learned from sales and I've been applying it to this. Like it's very similar. Maintain eye contact, have a smile every once in a
Yeah.
while, and like be genuine and have like good conversation and realize you're gonna make mistakes and so I write down like I write down. Do you like script writing for your
I do points. Like I
points?
basically do points. Even sometimes I'll do points on my phone and I'll get too detailed.
Mm.
And like I do have the help of Zach who kind of edits my videos and films them. The podcast stuff I do that, but the reels and stuff he helps me with. Where I've gotten too pointed with it, and then it becomes I'm a kid in 8th grade giving a presentation,
Yeah.
which no one receives that information very well. They tune out quite quickly. Where Zach's taken that point form and been like, hey, we gotta condense this a bit, which has helped me a ton. But some sort of structure has helped me. In terms of this podcast, it's the same thing. Like this podcast, as much as people think, some people might think I know what I'm doing. I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Other people who've listened to maybe the first couple episodes are like, wow, this sounds like absolute garbage, or this looks like garbage or whatever. They know that I'm learning. A big point of it too is to develop skills in terms of conversation.
Yeah.
It's a free way. I have a camera, I have the mics, I have 2 chairs,
Yep.
and I have people. Okay. Now let's sit down and develop skills in conversation. If you don't watch it, great, because hopefully 10 podcasts from now, Bailey was talking pretty good in that when you got information from him, and 10 podcasts from now, I've developed better skills
Yes.
in terms of the process of doing it. And it's like, if I'm going to do it, how much of a waste of it is that me and Bailey have this whole conversation. We sit here and we do this whole thing, and I take this memory card, I go to my computer and I delete it. Because I said one thing different. I said one thing off. I didn't look at this way, or I didn't do this perfectly. No, I'm going to put it out. I'm going to do my best when I put it out. And then hopefully on the next one, I remember in the back of my head, hey, when Bailey's talking, instead of me constantly going, yep, maybe just keep my mouth shut, stay quiet, let him speak. Different things like that, just picking up on it is like that process, like you're saying, is so good. And Zach actually gave me one piece of advice. He's like, when you watch yourself back, you'll learn things and you'll subconsciously remember them, which has been so helpful. Because now I'm in it and I'm listening to it, I'm learning. And then all of a sudden during it, I'm like, oh, I did that thing because I seen myself do it. I'm like, oh, either that was a good thing or a bad thing. I either want to take it away or want to keep doing it. So I'm learning. And you can actually see, I give you credit again, in terms of the skills you built. In terms of this podcast, you've done just the little things I've picked up that I've learned that sometimes I pick up on other people. A lot of them really, really well right away. And I'm going to guess I'm going to guess you haven't done a podcast before, right?
No, I've never have. So you've took my podcast virginity.
Well,
this is
good.
This is the first time.
I'll put your picture on the wall.
You've deflowered me.
Yeah. Well, like you can see some of those habits you've built in terms of communication. That this process has taught me, where you're learning it on your own too. You're seeing yourself, you're reflecting, and then you're still putting it out there, which again, I have to give so much credit for, because that is the resistance that people face when they have that voice that you've talked about that they don't do. And it's like, that kills me inside in terms of the fitness side. That's where it started. And it's transitioned into this content side where I see a person like yourself or, other people. And sometimes you see a person like yourself who's going out there and they're risking it. I'm going to do this. And then you see the other person who you're like, man, you got so much value. You have so much freaking value. You don't have to, you can go deadlift, you can go squat, you can go bench press. You can do all these things. You can create content and give value back to people. But you have to do it, man. You have to do it. And they don't do it. And you sit there and you're like, I believe in you. I freaking believe in you. I hardly know you. How do I get you to believe in you? And then you see a guy like yourself who I give so much credit for. It's like, good. Thank you. Like you're doing it. And for me, I'm like, that's so inspiring. Like it's so good. Cause I'm nowhere yet. I'm learning all this stuff. And then you have these things and it's like, there's more people like you. And every once in a while, you're going to get a person who has a little bit of belief in themselves and starts to go there.
Well, dude, give yourself some more credit. First of all, you are not nowhere. I'm gonna say that right now. Just the idea that we met like last week, 2 weeks, whatever it was,
Yep.
like just within the month, and you invited me onto your podcast. Like, I feel genuinely like really appreciated. Like, I'm very thankful for being here, for being on this podcast, for having the chance to do my first podcast. Literally, we were chilling downstairs doing a workout, and I'm like,
Yeah.
hey, like, I'd do a podcast, and you were like, dude, let's do it. Like, you were so open to that. Give yourself credit, man. You are doing fantastic. Absolutely. Like, having this business that you have set up, regardless, like, how old are you?
29. Just
Dude.
turned 29.
Yeah. Like, recently?
2 weeks ago.
Oh yeah. Happy birthday. Well, dude, like 29 years, like, you're not doing bad by any means. Like, I wouldn't don't compare yourself in any way. Like, you have this business set up, you have this podcast set up, you have great people around you. You're married, right?
Yep.
You have a beautiful wife with you as well. Like, I think you're doing fantastic. I think you're a great person as well.
Well, I appreciate that.
And dude, honestly, I was nervous as shit for this. Like, of course I'm here. Like, I did it. I'm sitting here with you, and it's awesome. It's way less nerve wracking than I thought it was going to be.
Isn't it? Like, once you get going, it's not nearly as bad, hey?
Yeah. As soon as you started chatting, as soon as we just started doing it, press record, I was all right. Let's just chat, And now that's the mindset that I've had. But beforehand, I was thinking to myself, like, oh, like, I got to think of some talking points, and oh man, like, what else do I say? Like, what if it's awkward?
Yeah.
And none of that came close to happening this entire time. Like, it's been what, an hour and a half, more than an hour and a half.
Yeah, man.
And we've just been consistently chatting and just keeping the conversation flowing. And it's been so much easier than I thought.
Yeah.
And like, it just goes back to, like you were saying, you just have to do it. You just got to do it, man. You just got to actually put in the steps. Like, just make yourself walk towards that area and get there. Make yourself do things that you are uncomfortable doing, and your discipline will skyrocket. You will be a lot more grateful and fulfilled because you actually just did something that you didn't think you could do.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think I could do this. I didn't think I could be a content creator. And some would argue that I can't. Some would say that I can't do it.
Yeah.
But I'm proving them wrong every single day. Every single day that I put out a video, every single day that I make something, I create something. That was the coolest thing, by the way. That was the coolest damn thing ever. When I put out the first video, I was ecstatic.
Did you get like YouTube particularly, hey? Like putting out a YouTube video?
Well, yeah, both. Instagram was the first thing I put I put a reel on.
Yeah.
And I just did it without nothing. I didn't have any script. I didn't have any like really ideas. I just had an idea for something. I'm like, I'm just going to do it. And I was really terrified to do it at home. I was like, my parents are here. Like, they're going to hear me do this. It's way too awkward. I can't do it. So I went outside and I went for a walk just by the parks there. And I was like, I'm going to record a short. And I did it in like 1 take, 2 takes, 3 takes, whatever it was. It was pretty quick. And I was just like, holy shit, this is nothing crazy, but I just created something. Like, I just made something. And I felt like I had never done that for real before, like I've done jobs. I've done so many different things, but I feel like creation was something that I wanted. It was something I really wanted to make something. Like, if content creation totally dies and I find this like idea for a business and like I create a business, that would even be just as fulfilling, I think, for me. I've had this desire for a little while now, and you can ask my friends and everything, like my family. That's all I talk about is I just want to make something of my own. I want to do something that I did that. And I can say that I made that, or I put the steps in to get there. You know what I mean?
I think it's incredibly satisfying, some people, maybe it's woodworking or it's, painting or whatever it might be. I think I can relate to that 100% of that feeling of like doing it, creating it and putting it out there and being like, this is me. This is purely me. Obviously, Apple, if you're filming on Apple, has something to do with it. Instagram has something to do with it. But at the end of the day, you were the one who took the risk. You were the one who got uncomfortable, and you were the one who was brave enough to go and do it. And you get to look back at it and be like, yeah,
you're the one on camera. You're the one speaking to the camera. Yeah. You can, it's cool. Like some of the shorts and the reels that I've made, it's just been me. It was the long form content, and then I use AI and it just creates the rest of the reel, which is cool. But it's still me talking. It's me on camera. It's me doing that. And like, regardless if AI created, well, course use things to your advantage. Like that's a given, right?
You still have to go out and seek those things.
Yeah.
Like it's not like that just you make a video and automatically AI takes over and creates, the filming process for you and everything. You still have to go say, hey, how am I gonna edit this? What software is out there? You have to seek out these resources to use.
And you have to set up the tripod. You got to set it up where you want to be. You have to have the background ready to go. You have to have all this other thing. You have to press record. You have to film.
Yeah.
All of those micro wins lead to the big one.
Yeah.
And that's I think the coolest thing about content creation so far is just all the little micro wins that you can get as you just continue to just keep doing it. And right now I'm in this like kind of phase where and it's kind of annoying, but I'm so excited for Thailand that I feel like I just have to get out there and just start doing it out there. Like it's hard for me to do it out here now. It's hard for me to create out here because I'm so motivated to get out there that I feel like it's holding me back mentally.
You have this big journey. You have a big journey to go on.
Yeah, and it's like a couple days away.
It's exciting. It's like in a way, it's your baby. It's your thing that has so much potential and opportunity. And I can imagine it's hard to sit here in your community that you've grown up in. I imagine you've grown up in this community and have all this potential that's right at your doorstep and think, well, I'm on the cusp of this. I can put out a couple of things. Yeah, cool. But I am distracted. I am so excited to get there. It totally makes sense. Like there's no way you can't be. You have this in the back of your head, and at the same time too, I'm sure there's some nervousness. I'm sure there's potential for things to go wrong, and that maybe is a small part, but it's still there. It's still in the back of the head, and I think it has to be. And it should be. It'd be a lot crazier if you said you're sitting here and you're saying, I'm going to Thailand. I don't really care. Like I'm going to film this. I'm going to film that, but I don't really care. It's like, okay, that's pretty disappointing. Like, why the heck are you going then? So that makes complete sense that it's like, hey, I'm anticipating it's coming.
And that's the mindset I've had. Throw out a couple feelers.
Yeah.
See what the content, just throw it out. I was like, okay, because I told my mom, because I've been talking to my mom about this too. She wants to do YouTube as well. She's very into sewing.
Oh, really?
And
that's cool.
She's very big into it. She's great at it too. Like she does a really good job. She made like a bunch of dresses for my aunt's wedding that we were at the other day.
Yeah.
And they look great. Like she's really good at that, and she has a talent for it. And she wants to get into social media and YouTube. But we're very similar. We always have had these big things, but it's like taking the steps to actually do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's actually already motivating her a little bit more. Like I hope that her seeing me do this actually like gets her to do those steps as well. Like
how cool would that be?
That would be like the coolest thing ever, and that's what she said. She's already said like, hey, when you get good at this, you should show me how to do it. You should show me how I can do it too.
Yeah.
And I really want to see her do it too. Like it's, the fact that it really doesn't take as much as people think to inspire others. Like if you just be authentic and be yourself and try to provide value in whatever you have skill and talent in, you can provide some pretty good value. People will pick up on your stuff and they'll like it.
And I think that tide is turning too. Like you see it in content creation now on platforms like YouTube and Instagram. That authenticity is like, I just put out a reel today talking about that. Like you're seeing that tide turn of people are, they stopped watching TV because it didn't feel authentic. They turned to social media at times and YouTube and stuff because those videos, whether they're viral video or whatever, they're real life videos. They're relatable videos. The quality might not be there. The perfection might not be there, but that's good. It's like right now, that's okay. That's going to get people who truly relate with you and find value in what you're, let's say your mom is sewing and she's doing things she might mess up or whatever. The people watching her sew are probably messing up twice as much and it can relate. Oh, thank goodness she's not perfect, because that's discouraging if she just sits there and perfectly sews up an entire thing. And they're sitting there like, oh, I screwed this thing up 15 times. Well, to see her maybe fumble over her words or have the camera at the wrong angle or maybe even screw up in the sewing process, they can probably be like, oh, that's perfect. I did the same thing. Where I think that tide is turning, because I think YouTube for a time, I think it has its place, but these platforms for a time, the quality improved until it almost became now a production thing, a TV thing. And then people are like, oh man, I stopped watching TV for this relatable thing. And I think there is still an area for that high production and high value and really nice looking stuff. I think that is.
Yeah.
But YouTube being such a big landscape, and Instagram and whatever, all these social media platforms having such a massive landscape, I think there is a transitioning back to authenticity and imperfection being relatable and being valuable. At least for me it is. And the stuff I'm seeing more and more kind of switch over to, even fitness, the perfect body is, that transition kind of has happened. And then now there's a little bit of, hey, this guy's not perfect, but dang, does he have some good value to offer? Dang, does he have a good perspective on that thing?
Yeah, they don't have to have a 6-pack shredded abs anymore to have an actual influence. And you're seeing that more and more with every brand that comes out. People buy into people. They buy into actual like authenticity, like good value, good opinions and stuff like that. Like that's what they buy into. They want to hear something legit. They want to hear your actual opinion. And if they like it, they're going to buy into you.
Yeah.
They don't care about anything else. They'll watch your content. They'll watch everything you put out.
Because we're inherently imperfect.
Yeah.
And how can if you're inherently, your imperfections, like we talked about earlier, you're going to bed, you know what you did in the day. If it wasn't something that honored who you were and honored your character and your integrity and all that stuff, that. So to go watch someone who doesn't have any of that, who doesn't come across as has any of those things, that's tough. Like, it has its place. I think, it's motivational and inspiring to see people who seem to be on another level, definitely. But to see a little chink in armor sometimes, like you were saying, you were sharing your perspective of in your content of like kind of some vices and some things that you're working through and have had to work through, and you're speaking in a way that's to younger people. I think that's the content that, like you said, the person, you're a person, and people, again, inherently imperfect. And to just say, hey, doing my best. This is what I'm doing my best at. Not going to be perfect at it, but come along for a ride, and we'll see where we can get.
And with a commitment, if you say to yourself, hey, I'm going to be doing this for this and this amount of time, this is how long I've committed to this, you will see results. If I was to go, when I first started sales, again, for example, if I was to have said, I'm getting 200 accounts, but I didn't really mean it. I was like, it's good. I hope I get that. That'd be cool. No, I said, I'm going to get 200 accounts. I'm going out there to get 200 accounts. Your words, what you say is so much more powerful than you think. That's like so many people, they talk down on themselves. They so much self-doubt, like that they say it to themselves. Like, oh, I'm a loser. I suck. I can't do this. That means so much. Like, it goes back to me saying visualization and manifestation is so important to me. Regardless of what anybody thinks, if they don't think that's true, I believe it's very, very true. What you tell yourself is what comes out.
I do too.
Yeah. And I think it applies to everything. If you can just buckle down and commit yourself to what you want. If you want to be a great sales rep, hey, I'm going to be in sales for the next 3 years. I suck at it now, but I will be good at it. I will be good at it. You will see drastic improvements every year. It just takes a bit of time, and people are very, very impatient, especially in our generation because of everything going on, right? It almost forces us to be that way.
And every once in a while you get someone who has a quicker road than you. And it's like, it's easy to say, oh man, like I've had plenty of reels, the past couple reels in the past, there's been plenty that have done nothing and don't go anywhere, or posts or pieces of content or even training ideas, like in terms of like, oh, let's try marketing this way or that way. There's so many of those things. I think sometimes there is people who do succeed quite quickly, and you got to cheer for them. You got to say, hey man, I'm working my butt off. You took half the time. Like, good for you. I'm going to still be here, and I'm going to try and catch up or try and see you in a little bit at that same level. But good on you. And then you just kind of have to keep going and maybe even pick up a few pieces. Like what did happen? How did they, like, I think in fitness, that Sam Sulla kid is a perfect example. And I can only call him a kid because I'm older, not because I'm bigger, for sure. But he's a perfect example of, like, you just got to cheer for him. You're like, I don't agree with everything you're saying, but holy smokes, good on you, man. You blew up fairly fast. And what are the reasons for that? you know, even you see like the Andrew Tate stuff, like where people had a perspective on him and they're allowed to have a perspective, whatever it is. But pull back, look at what's happening. How did this happen? What were the processes that took place to get there? Is there anything you can grab in your process and add to it? You might not like them, you might hate them, but is there a piece you can grab? Or another perspective. Joe Biden's president in the US. You might not like him, you might not do, but is there something that he did in that process or something that he's doing that maybe you can just grab a piece from, or maybe even not? You can say, hey, I don't like this guy. Why not? Okay, I'm not going to do that thing. And then add it to your process.
There's a quote that I love, and I'm going to maybe mess it up a little bit here, but most men will learn from their own mistakes, but wise men learn from the mistakes of others. Mm-hmm. I think that's like, it's words to live by.
Brilliant.
Yeah. You really have to realize that you're not going to figure this all out by yourself, no matter what you're doing. There's no chance. Mentors are everything in everything that you do. And I'm actually joining a community of guys out in Thailand. There's a bunch of guys there, and they're doing online business. Some of them are in content creation and very successful in it. And they're going to be my mentors. They're going to be people that are going to be helping me along this journey. If I didn't have that, I'd probably be doing my content would still be coming out, but it might be at a very much slower rate. Mm-hmm. And the quality might be a lot less or drastically slower in terms of how good it comes out, because I'm getting perspectives and criticism from other people. And I'm taking everything and like taking it to heart and like actually applying it. You have to take that criticism, learn from it, realize like, what can I change? What can I fix? Like what you're saying is absolutely right. Like you have to take that and take from anybody. Like Sam Solek, he's a young guy. He's huge, but he's blowing up right now. What is he doing?
Yeah.
Like what can I do to replicate that in a sense? How can I take from what he's doing and learn from it and become, you know, obviously you can't get like the freaking huge like he is.
Yeah, like it's easy to sit here, a perfect example, like we're talking about. It's easy to sit here and say, hey, that guy's big because he's on steroids. Yep. You sit here and say that. You might not agree with that. That's completely fine. You have that right. But hey, take 2 steps back. Say, hey, that guy's big because he's on steroids. Cool. Don't like that. Don't agree with it. I'm concerned for his health. Perfect. But you can also say to yourself, that guy's big because he's being him. And say, how can I do a better job at being me? You don't have to do the steroids he's doing to be you, but you can say, hey, he's like you said, hitting that record button in his car. He's putting content out there. Okay, he's being brave, as cheesy as it sounds. He's being brave with what he's providing. He's letting people criticize, but providing anyways.
I don't think it's cheesy either, though. Like that's being brave. That's what it comes down to, right? Like that's what everything comes down to. Be brave. Take the first step. Yeah. Be brave. Go to the gym. Be brave. Open the book. Like everything is like, so much of us are scared to just take that first step. Yeah. You know what I mean?
And we get trapped with the painting 2 inches from our face, and we pick it that 2 inches, that 4x4 square that we can see, and we pick it apart instead of taking a step back and realizing, dang, that's the Mona Lisa. Holy shit, that's a beautiful picture. And meanwhile, we're 2 inches away from it, picking all those little details apart. When pulling back, we can see that there's maybe imperfections, but it's a beautiful piece of art, and it's imperfectly beautiful. And we can learn a couple, as let's say you're a painter, you can learn a couple tips of what happened when you actually pull back and see and grab pieces from it, rather than simply sitting there and being like, well, that's a piece of shit. Yeah, you're not seeing the whole thing. You're not seeing the whole picture. No wonder it's a piece of shit. Like
we're imperfect. We all have so much to learn. Yeah. We all have a mission that a lot of us don't ever find or don't ever have the courage to go for,
to pursue. Yes.
And if you and I, any creator can help and just put out anything that can encourage and inspire others to, at least start and try to doing things that they love and try to push towards it. If you can push more people to get in the gym, that's probably all you want. That's probably your main passion, is just get people in the gym, get people learning like the regular lifts and how to be more functional. And of course, having a little bit of a better body that doesn't hurt.
Feel good,
right? Feel good, look good.
I like you asked me at the start of where I got started. I was flipping insecure, felt beat down, felt pretty worthless, and decided, with the help of a lot of other people, I can't say I decided and take all the credit for it. I had a lot of people influence my life and continue to do that. But I seen that in myself, and I see that in other people, and that's my passion. I love to, like I said, you sitting here. I love the opportunity for someone to be in a position where they're at and say, hey, how can I help provide you a step? How can I help? I might not be able to do, I hope I'm not able to do what you can do in a way. Like I'm definitely going to try my best, but if all of a sudden Bailey says, hey, I'm on this podcast, that's going to be a step this direction for me, and I get to be a part of that. Hell yeah. If someone comes through the door and it's a person who maybe is a little insecure about something, and all of a sudden they lift a weight or they see a muscle that they've never seen before, and I get to be like, and all of a sudden it's more weight than I'm lifting. Hell yeah, I got to be a part of that. I get to win with them. Like that for me is my passion. And it's like you said with talking to like your younger self when you're talking to the camera. It's like you get to be a part of that mission with whoever is going to come up and follow you and get inspired by hitting the record button or going out on that sales job or taking a risk in whatever direction. You are now a part of it. It's a big responsibility, but it's also a massive gift.
And to relate, like when I brought everybody out this summer, I got to be a part of everyone getting their first sales.
Like, isn't that cool?
Getting, they all the sales that they have, like so many of the guys, they credit me for helping them get there. And that feels awesome. That's a great feeling. Like if I can, what else would feel better? Like it's far more fulfilling to provide rather than to receive. Yes. Like if it's just me and I'm just doing everything for myself, that's a pretty lonely life. But if I'm providing and trying to help people and teaching them, because learning, the best learner is teaching, right? That's the best way to learn. And it's so eye-opening and so fulfilling when you get to actually put that with somebody else, see them get the results that you saw maybe at the beginning when you first did it. Yeah. That's a cool ass feeling, man.
Yeah. It's, I think there's few things better. I get pumped up thinking about it. As we're kind of reaching the end here, I always, I want to give people an opportunity to kind of say a few words, a piece of advice or a piece of perspective that they have. And then also following that, I want them to have the opportunity to kind of shout out what they're doing, especially in a situation like yours with content creation, shout out what they're doing, where people can find them, and kind of what they can look forward to. So first, let's start with, I want you to kind of express if you have anything, maybe it's a piece of advice, maybe perspective, anything like that, kind of that you would leave people with.
Well, if they've watched this far, into the podcast here, they know that the kind of the grand scheme of the podcast has been, you can do what you actually want to do. And so the piece of advice I'll leave with is, if you have something in the back of your mind that you have been thinking about every single day, for me, that was YouTube. And I talked to everybody about it. Hey, I want to do YouTube. I'm going to be a YouTuber. I'm going to try it. I'm going to go for it. If you have something in the back of your mind that you've been wanting for so long, like maybe it was years, for me, it was a couple years, take the first step today. Do something today that can actually progress you to getting to where you want to be. If that's just getting in the gym, then just make the drive to the gym and buy a membership. If you go once this month, you've made progress. Realize that you're going to make mistakes. It's okay. And that there's a lot of learning to do, and you can make something crazy if you just go for your passions, go for your desires.
Yes. That's beautiful, man. And then, last thing, I'm not even going to add to that, 'cause that is perfect. I love that. Dang, that is good. That is good. Where can people find you? Where can they, follow along? I mean, your Thailand journey, all that stuff. Shout out whatever you're doing, wherever they can find you. And I'm going to link the places they can below, whether it's YouTube, Instagram, I mean, Tumblr. I don't know. Is Tumblr still a thing, actually?
I don't think so. Yeah. It's the same. It's the same across all platforms. So I'm on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Everything's the same. It's all one word, The Alpha Wolf, with an underscore. Specifically add the underscore and make it the same, because YouTube, you're not going to find me if you don't. It's the way their search engine works, I guess. Yeah. So The Alpha Wolf, all one word with an underscore. That's my tag. You can look me up on all of them. That's where I'll be. I'll be in Thailand for the next 5 to 6 months of my life. That's the plan. That's the minimum. That's what I've told myself. Hey, this is the commitment I'm making, and we're going to see where it goes from there.
Heck yeah, man. I'm going to tag all those things below, you guys. So if you're not sure of the spelling or anything like that, just hit the description below, and then you can click any of those links to go check out Bailey's stuff, and see what he's up to. And maybe you guys grab some piece of advice from him and pieces of perspective that can enhance your life. Before we close off, Bailey, I want to thank you for popping in here, sharing things, because that's always a nerve-wracking part too, sharing perspectives or different parts of your life. That can be nerve wracking. You didn't seem nervous at all, which is kind of cool. And I appreciate you for inspiring me to kind of keep going and popping in here and doing this, man. Thank you.
I appreciate you having me on, man. Again, you took my podcast virginity. It was a little nerve wracking. As much as it maybe didn't seem like I was nervous, I definitely was a little bit nervous, but
awesome.
It was an awesome experience. I'm very glad I got to be on here.
Sweet. Well, I look forward to having you back when you get back from Thailand in, what'd you say, 5 months, right?
5-6 months. Yeah.
5-6 months. So in about a year and a half from now, when you're done enjoying your success out there, I look forward to having you back on here, man. And we'll catch you guys in the next episode of What the Pell.
Absolutely. Sweet.